All right, hold on. Hey, everybody on YouTube. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, as this is a Thursday night, March 26th on the West Coast, early morning of the 27th if you're on the East or across the pond. Dave Scott, your host in charge of tonight's festivities. Thank you so much for joining us. And our guest tonight is author Gian Quasar. We are going to be talking about the Zodiac killer. We're in for a good one. Gian also has really good hair. So we got to admire that as well. You know, he's a very talented writer, writing about everything that is very, very strange going on in this community. Do me a favor that when you are ready to do so and hop on in, make sure you give us a thumbs up, because one of those thumbs up, it actually does help. I haven't figured out how yet, but apparently it does, because I'm not that YouTube savvy yet. Audra, how are you, being number one in the chat room tonight, as we are about 5 minutes from launching here? How you doing, Gian?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. This is the nice, relaxing stuff that we do before the show and in between commercials here with the audience on YouTube. The radio guys, they don't get this. They don't get this fun part.
Well, that's good. It's one time I can relax then.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm actually excited to have you back on, man. Real excited. When Corey told me you were coming back on to this time talk about Zodiac, I was like, oh, yeah, that's good stuff. That is good stuff.
Well, it's about time. I promised people for quite a while about the horoscope coming out, but this is the last case that I promised to, do it the way through the official channels.
Yeah.
And so I've been bogged down with the official confirmation that I basically nailed the Zodiac. I finally tracked the guy and got, matching evidence, admissible evidence on him.
Nice.
But that's, of course, lost in the world of everybody claiming that, so I can fly under sonar for a while, except for those who follow me closely.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
so I think it's time to talk about Steve.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to get deep into that tonight. I'm very much looking forward to it, man. Very much. Chocobo, Donnie, how are you? Good to have all of you here tonight. Thank you so much. Always takes a while for everybody to pile on in, but we'll get everybody in here. There's enough room for everybody. Enough room for everybody to come on and join us tonight. So we are very much looking for this one. Very much. And let's see here. We're about 3 minutes away. 3 minutes away from showtime, and just doing the final checks on all the websites and everything. Now, hey, Derek, how are you? Now, John does have a little bit of a cold. No, he is not infected, as everybody wants to know. Are you infected? Are you infected? You know?
Well, I would like to think I am, because then I get it over with.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
It would be a mild dose of it, but this is beyond my allergies, and I do have a virus of some kind. It's bronchitis.
Yes.
And
you know how I cured my bronchitis?
How?
I started taking teaspoons of really brutal hot sauce, because I got sick and tired of all the meds my doctor was putting me on, and I love really like brutally hot sauce, like with the ghost peppers. Well, the ghost peppers have this spice in it called capsicum or something like that. Anyways, what capsicum does when it goes into your system, it actually burns the mucus lining of any type of bronchitis or pneumonia in your lungs. And I literally had bronchitis for 4.5 months, could not get rid of it, started taking couple tablespoons a day of hot sauce. And literally within 5 days, my bronchitis was gone. So worked
What
for
hot
me.
sauce is that?
Oh, dude, if I go into my fridge, I got like the most brutal hot sauces you can find. High Scoville units. Look for anything that has like a real hot pepper, like a ghost pepper or a Carolina Reaper pepper. And just take a small tablespoon or teaspoon, pardon me, a couple times a day. Or when your lungs feel like you just can't breathe. That's what I did.
I'll just get a sick stomach then.
Actually, it clears you out pretty good. You just keep the milk nearby because you're going to need it. All right, 1 second here, my friend, because we're just seconds from getting going here. Hey, everybody. Bill WD-40, Science Bob, and his super cape. Everybody included. I will get to all of you yet. Don't forget, we do have Super Chat open for you, and a great way to support this show is to go to our website, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault, as we got music on. Ready for tonight. Admiral Nelson, good to see you. Waylon, how you doing, man? Maureen, pleasure. Mongolan, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, pleasure. The Phenom is back, too. Right on. Here we go, guys. Let's have a good one, shall we? Little true crime tonight. From the snowy mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and doing a little shopping on the SOR Vault. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Gian Quasar has investigated a broad range of mysterious subjects, from strange disappearances to serial murders, earning in that time the unique distinction of being likened to the real-life Kolchak. However, he is much more at home with being called the Quester or Q-Man. He's bloody eccentric, an historian with no qualifications, who sticks his nose into affairs and gets results. He is the author of several books, including his latest, where he is writing about trying to figure out the mystery of the Zodiac. Has Gian solved this case? We are going to find out here momentarily. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Quasar, it's been a few months since you've been on this show. Thank you so much for coming on back. I know you got some bronchitis you're dealing with, but I hope you're doing all right, my friend.
Yes, I'll just have to cough once in a while. And my voice is kind of gone, but I think I'll make it.
Well, cheers to you, man, for being a sport and coming on here while you're not feeling very good, while your throat is a little sore. But we're glad to have you. Are you doing all right through this whole virus and epidemic or pandemic?
I so far, yesterday was the worst day I think I'm coming through this. I don't know what I have, but it's unusual for me. So if it is the virus that's going around, I've gotten a mild dose of it, and I'll come through it.
Well, that's good. That is very good. For people who may not be familiar with you and your work, Gian, why did you start to write about all of these really obtuse type topics of what we would call the further distances of the paranormal?
It started in 1990 with the Bermuda Triangle. And I just had an ability to go find all these records with the National Transportation Safety Board and so forth, and found out how antiquated the whole subject matter was. And so I spent years doing that. I finally put a website up in 1999, and I was inundated just on that subject alone because of all that I found. And TV knocked on my door repeatedly, and I was on all these shows, and McGraw-Hill rushed my book to printing and so forth in 2003. And unfortunately, I got identified with that type of thing, but it was only one of many things that I investigated. And after I got that out of my system, I just continued to go on with all these other subject matters. And in 2010, I decided that it was time for true crime. And of course, whenever you do cold case or true crime, you have to start with Jack the Ripper. So that's where I began for years. Same time, I was working closer to home with Zodiac. I'm within an hour of Vallejo, where he first struck, and Lake Berryessa, and about an hour and a half, depending on traffic, into Presidio. So that's when I started taking up photography of crime scenes, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a lousy photographer, so there's nothing artistic in my work, but I started doing all the research I could. Excuse me. And so in 2012, I finally started doing the photography. At the same time, I'm quite inundated with trying to find all the locations of the East Area Rapist, because there was not much out there on him, and that's very close to me. I'm much closer to Sacramento than the Bay Area. And I just started honing down investigation and came across leads, going to a certain individual finally that I call Steve, that is his first name. And I finally, had enough that he was very much, very suggested that he was the Zodiac killer. And it took me a lot of years to get contemporary handprinting. That's really what an independent investigator can go for first. I can't go and, get warrants for guns or anything like that. And finally, I achieved that last year after people have been waiting for years for Horoscope and my investigation to come out. And I turned him in formally with an investigative packet of 9 pages of material to one of the jurisdictions, to the lead detective. And it's a year later now, and, stuff has happened that maybe it's time to talk about it all.
Very
Because
interesting.
2 years ago, another jurisdiction, Vallejo, submitted DNA in May of 2018 for genealogical purposes. It was all the rage. It was a month after D'Angelo was identified as the alleged East Area Rapist. And so then the news broadcast about how Vallejo has gotten fresh DNA from one of the stamps that Zodiac sent in. And they have submitted it for tracing in the genealogical databases, and it's 2 years later, and nothing has happened. And I happen to know that Paul Holes, who was in charge of getting the DNA against D'Angelo, he got leads in several months and went down to 2 guys by October, and he got the DNA in August of 2017. By October, it was down to 2 guys. They went after the one they thought was most probable, which would not have been D'Angelo the cop. And then after he was ruled out, they went after D'Angelo. He was the only one left, and got it all to fit. And by April, they served him with a warrant and got him. Now, it's been 2 years that it's been submitted. The DNA has been submitted for Zodiac off a stamp, and nothing. It was a year after they submitted it that I finally got the goods on a guy that people have known I've been hunting since 2012. And I've used an alias surname for him to protect the guilty and the innocent. But from what I have in my investigation and having admissible evidence, I know I got the guy because handprinting is admissible, and I was able to match it contemporarily with his military printing. And but he was adopted.
Oh, interesting.
And that will foul everything up in genealogical research when there's an adoption. That changes everything. He had no siblings. His mother wasn't going to have more kids. He was born out of wedlock. And he has no close cousins. So I'm suspecting that maybe someone wants to do it the easy way and just trace genealogically and say we got him. And I've fallen on deaf ears despite what I have sent in. So I have to proceed on my own. Finally this year, and I've promised for too long, and I've shared excerpts for too many years. And a big section of the Quester Files is devoted to the Zodiac Killer. I did not want to devote in my book, Horoscope, to going after the legend, all the falsehood, and recreate all the crime scene stuff. So I did that online years and years ago. That went up. And so people can go to that to see all the crime scene photographs, the videos, links, clear a lot of the stuff up we can talk about tonight.
Absolutely.
Stuff that I don't want to be burdened with in the book. The book is straightforward. I recreate the times and crimes of the Zodiac. I go through it. I was writing it as I was still investigating without knowing it was Steve. I was pretty certain, but I wrote the first part of the book just as, an historical, accurate recreation of everything. And I'm not going to alter that and try and work in.
Now, Gian, I'm curious in regards to, and we're going to get deep into this over the next little bit, but, what's the love and the passion about the Zodiac that has intrigued you?
Well, I remembered as a kid, and I had so forgotten it, that when I took up Cold Case, I just remembered a guy with a hood and a sniper and that kind of stuff. And I started rereading in 2010. And it's the quest for mystery. I guess I bore easily, and I'm incredibly selfish. I want to solve a crime, or solve a mystery or contribute thereto to my satisfaction, but I'd like to share it with people. So I found I can do that with the web. And it's a very, when you study like D'Angelo and the Ripper and other cold cases, you see a few guys that stand out. And they're the most the bold serial killers. They're predators, of course, and all predators are cowards, but these were more ingenious ones who went after more than just a victim. They wanted to shake up society. And Zodiac was someone, of course, who turned the era, a very antsy era, into his own. It was his stage to create more terror than murder. And it's all the chances he took. This was someone who, who flagrantly violated all the rules and got away with it. No one's ever been able to trace him, despite handprinting, letters. He really went out of his way to protect himself, and he's always, he's leaving a trail of potential clues just by boasting. There's been other serial killers who have haunted lovers' lanes, but they didn't, make a publicity campaign of murder out of it in order to terrorize the society. And he did. The murders were just an ante in his game of death. And I figured this guy, he has to be exposed. Someone like this, just cannot be allowed to transpose into mystery like Jack the Ripper and become a subject of all these shaky suspects like Jack the Ripper has become. And 100 years from now, we still don't know, and there's going to be nothing but 100 books, vast conspiracy theories and so forth. So I was around, and I just going to the crime scenes and starting photography of it and working out geoprofiling got me hooked. And so I just had to keep on going. And fortunately enough has been released that it is possible to get accurate investigative material. You can't get that with other cases.
Very cool. Very cool. John, you have written about the Bermuda Triangle. You've written about other strange cases and developments over the years. What's different between writing a book like about the Bermuda Triangle comparatively to writing about, say, a serial killer like the Zodiac?
If you take it seriously, you have to imagine you're going to go to court with it and then prove it. With the Triangle, with Bigfoot, with Flight 19, with even with the disappearance of the USS Cyclops, you can leave it with your theory based on inductive logic, and it remains this, intriguing accusation in some way about what the mystery is about. And that's actually very easy. But when you're out to solve a murder or serial raping, you take cold case seriously. You have to go after it and not just write something that's going to be another ghastly accusation against someone like these Bitter with Daddy books. And you have to be ready to solve it. You don't go to court and end with a theory. No one prosecutes a case on theory. You have to have evidence. And so you go for cold case, you go for evidence, and you got to know what it is, and you got to know what clues lead to it. And you really have to refine your thinking and take it seriously, because I'm not interested in writing another book that just clears, sets the mystery out for people. the purpose is to solve the crime. And I can, some of these I don't intend to write about, but Zodiac was one that required a book. It's like D'Angelo, with the East Area Rapist, I never intended to write a book. That's something that could not be done. It was already done by a couple of the detectives. I maintained everything online. I don't know how many pages, 80, 90 pages on the Q files. It got millions of views. I, turned it from the obscurity the case had been back in 2011 when only one book had been written and self-published by one of the detectives, a very fine man named Larry Crompton. But on the web, there was very little. There was a message board where people talked behind alias names. And there was Robert Neville had a website up, and J.J. D'Angelo listing cases or the newspaper accounts. But there was no crime scene investigation. And so I shoved all these pictures up, video on East Area Rapist case in 2014. And it zoomed from there, and thank God I never had to write a book. But I was glad to do it that way, and it contributed. But with Zodiac, the website, which people can go look at, is a far different thing. This is just clarifying and relaying the foundation. But for something like this, you have to go after and solve the crime by exposing the guy. And for 5-6 years, ever since people knew I was after Steve, I just had to wait, and I would get emails saying, when's the book out? When are you going to identify him? And of course, you get lost in the static then, and that's fine with me because so many make a claim. And we can go over my investigation, why how I had to winnow it down to who is the most likely person. But so many have made claims, and it's their father, it's their cousin, it's their uncle. It's this guy because his face looks like the San Francisco composite picture, which is incredibly inaccurate. And it was just, it was something I could do, and it's very, very different from anything where you're presenting a mystery without solution to where you have to present a solution.
That's got to be
true
tough.
Crime, you simply cannot, you simply cannot. I don't wish to anyway, and I'm not a writer. I investigate in real life, and I write about some of my cases. But so that makes quite a bit of a difference. I'm not someone who's right for hire to do true crime and just write out a mystery and leave people, dangling with an inference that it might be this guy or that guy. This is to be the investigative thesis that shows my work and then points to the guy and shows the evidence. Not an accusation, the evidence, not an inference. The book will show writing comparisons. They're on my website as well on the updates page. And you can look for yourself. And then so much more in the book as I tracked his mother's rather unusual life, including a secret marriage, how he got to San Francisco for 1 year in the area where Zodiac did kill, near the Presidio. And then you begin to see when you encounter everything, when you encounter everything about the suspect, you begin to see how it fits, how his stepfather actually was part of the designing of the new Humble Oil refinery on Lake Herman Road. And then the evidence that shows Zodiac really only knew Lake Herman Road. He wasn't too very familiar with Vallejo or even Columbus Parkway. And that's all reflected in the life of Steve and in his contacts.
Interesting. And we're going to get
quite minute about everything.
Yeah. And we're going to get heavily into that as the show goes on here, John. With this, you made a real interesting comment that, you've been working on this book for 5-6 years. When you want to get it right, there really is no timeline, is there?
No, the book has essentially been done for a few years, and I've been sitting there waiting to get the final few chapters written when I finally obtained admissible evidence in the form of matching printing. And that, as I say, finally happened last year at this time when I did obtain military from the 1960s. He was in the Air Force. That's how he got his wing walkers. And there was the printing right there. And even the variations, Zodiac had a wide range of varying his numbers, making a 9 like a backward P. And Steve did that as well. It was a long search. It was since 2012. So then in 2019, I finally got the admissible evidence. I had so long searched, you'd be surprised how hard it is to get contemporary handprinting from 50 years ago.
No kidding. Now, is this Steve still alive?
He is dead.
He is, eh?
Yes. He lived a rather full life. He saw Mel Bellai's empire collapse and all these things. How much he repented of what he did, I don't know. But he did go on to live, getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but he did go on to live a rather long life working for the government. And I would imagine, I suppose we can talk about the Zodiac crimes more independently before we get to Steve to lay a foundation.
Absolutely.
But say this: he was discharged basically in everything but Section 8 officially from the Air Force for mental problems in 1967, and a year and a half later, the Zodiac murders begin as he returns to the area, and he burns hot. Zodiac burns hot for a while, and we'll just, we can talk about how he then kind of changes his attitude in his later letters, and then disappears. And we can get into Steve, I guess, then after that, see how he fits the actual evidence. But he got away. People might try and say, well, he's finally, before the great judge. But, when it comes to our responsibility here on Earth, Steve got away with it. Zodiac got away with murder. And will, cautiously say Steve. But I have to say he does have he's the only one to ever, that I can present out of all the suspects that have ever been presented. He's the one that does have matching printing.
Right.
He was around, and there are reasons, many other reasons, rather than printing, to suggest him.
All right, we've got just over 90 seconds here before we got to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, author Gian Quasar is our guest tonight. He apologizes for his coughing that is happening. He has bronchitis right now that he is battling through, but he is a trooper and with us. So with this and the years that it took to finally get confirmation on everything, do you feel satisfied as we go into getting into deeper into this case here in the next half hour?
Yes, that I did my duty. I fulfilled my word. I had promised 8 years ago to contribute significantly or solve the case. And yes, I'm quite satisfied that I didn't fail this time. I was able to finally get the goods.
Well, that's actually kind of good.
I'm grateful that I've flown under radar for the most part. So,
do you think that this case, that the police and everybody wants to solve it, or do you think they've written it off?
I don't think they ever write it off. But what's taken 2 years with DNA, presuming that he did lick those stamps, that's another thing to discuss. So if he didn't lick those stamps and the DNA doesn't match, or they cannot find Steve, if I am indeed correct, because of the adoption, then I don't know how hesitant they're going to be, because that is now the big fad. Of course, that's evidence, that's tangible evidence they can take, even though I would say handprinting is too. But there's been so much, talking about DNA that if they're stymied there, it just might be getting lost under a stack of paper. Very
right. Very much so. Gian Quasar, you hold on here because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We are talking about the serial killing case of the Zodiac, an incredible, mysterious case that is still unsolved to today. And we're going to go into the detail, the history, coming up with Gian Quasar right after this on Spaced Out Radio. There we go. There we go. YouTube's packed up. Good job. I'll let you give your voice a little bit of a break here.
We're not on. They can't hear me?
Oh, they can hear you. Yes. YouTube can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Radio cannot. Radio cannot. YouTube can. They get all the inside secrets on YouTube. All the inside secrets.
I better be careful then.
Yes. Yes.
I suppose when we come back on, we'll just go over the Zodiac crimes first to lay the foundation so everybody knows.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll go through the history in the next half hour, and what happened, how it started, the year, and why.
It's really quite different than all the folklore. Robert Graysmith really piled it on. He fell into a lot of stuff he didn't make up. Some people say he made it up, but he did not make up all the Vallejo stuff. He just had to. You just have to go to Vallejo, and they really labored under an awful lot of missteps there about Darlene Farron knowing the Zodiac, that there was indeed a connection, and they followed all those leads at that time because of those phone calls after she was shot. The family received phone calls from someone who was on the other line but didn't say anything, and they were sure that had to be from him. So that means he knew who she was, knew her family, and for 30 years they labored under that Zodiac had a definite connection to Dee Farron, and investigating her life would uncover him. The couple of the biggest suspects there ever were in the Zodiac case, both then and later, like Bill Grant, all were suspects because they knew her.
Right.
And Graysmith went with that. He didn't create that. He actually ran with that view as well. That's what Vallejo was telling him.
Perfect.
There's a lot of strange stuff in Vallejo, let me tell you.
It's a lot of strange stuff all over. I
was always the center of it.
What's that, buddy?
I was always the center of it. Dee Farron. The legend, when Graysmith first wrote Zodiac in 86, it came out 18 years later. That's the first book, really, and it all cascades from there. And so the folklore has been largely something that cascades from Graysmith's work. It's simply people branch out to include other suspects, their own personal suspect, but they always try and base it on this enormous folklore that developed, either believing Zodiac was truly this master astrological assassin who was continuing to kill all over the country, or that he had very close connections to Dee Farron and Vallejo, and the actual evidence never pointed to any such thing at all. Although Vallejo PD was quite justified in thinking there was a connection because of those phone calls, they didn't know until 30 years later it was actually her brother who was calling.
Wow.
He finally confessed that he was trying to reach her at whatever house to see if she had gotten weed for him that day, which opens up another big can of worms. That she was actually supposed to be meeting someone.
Right. Greco, yes, we are live. We are live right now, but we're not live on the radio. Just kind of... You YouTubers, you rarely get the commercials. So...
You can understand, when you understand the legend, you can understand why the guy who was with her, Mike Mayhew,
yes,
why he vanished, because he certainly believed that she must have known him. And, you get the autopsy report from her, and it completely contradicts the legend. It contradicts what Mayhew claimed in ICU. He was obviously covering up something. He said they just went to the park to talk. All of a sudden, they were supposed to go eat something because, they were famished. And then she turned around on impulse, and they went to the park to talk. Well, that's not possible because the autopsy's out there. I got copies from Solano County. And she had a full undigested meal in her. So she had just eaten. So they went to the park for some other reason, and Mayhew saw fit to cover up what it was. And it was simply never pursued. Even in the movie, when they recreate this, according to Graysmith's book, they still go with the legend, even though by that time the autopsy was quite out there. You have to pay $45 and you can get everything from Solano County.
Right.
From the coroner's office. And it's all detailed, all the entrance and exit holes in her. She had, 17 in her. And the full undigested meal, all that. So what exactly were they going out there for? Was it to fool around, or was she supposed to meet the guy she's supposed to get marijuana for her brother, who was calling the house, to find out where she was? but no one's ever pursued it. But you can certainly understand why Mike Mayhew vanished, thinking that Zodiac was her killer, that was her contact as well, and he would come and get him. But that was very common in Vallejo and her circle, that Zodiac did know her and did kill her and was her contact or something. So there was something else that they were up to that night, but no one pursued it. I have to talk about it, of course, because I'm trying to set everything back in place in the book. But if you watch the movie or read the other books, it's usually going to just follow one set pattern where they go out there and spur the moment to talk. And, you want to go eat something first, and then instead of going to Mr. Ed's, they go out to Blue Rock Springs Park. But what was the real motive? We'll never know, because Mayhew would never say why.
No kidding.
Certainly wasn't because they, wasn't spur of the moment. If she had a full meal on her, he was giving excuses about why they went out there.
Hold on one second here, John. We're about to come back. Hey, YouTube, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Want to remind you that a great way to support this show, we got the Super Chat open, and head to our store on our website, spacedoutradio.com/shop. It's the SOR Vault. Don't forget to pick up your T-shirts right now. We got all the prices lowered down for you to help you on out right now. Here we go with the second half hour. Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time and appreciate the fact that if you have subscribed to our YouTube channel, we really do appreciate that. But that's where we store all our archives for free at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and keeping up to date on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. We're talking the Zodiac Killer tonight on Spaced Out Radio. One of the great authors out there when it comes to everything a little bit strange, a little bit weird, and unsolved. The mysterious one himself, Gian Quasar. Gian, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Not a problem. So, people, if you're wondering, we're going to clarify this all night. John has bronchitis. He does not have any other sort of virus out there, so he may have to clear his throat every now and again, but that's quite all right. The main thing is he is here for us tonight. And, John, let's learn a little bit about the history of the Zodiac for people who may not be familiar. What is this case all about?
Right. To take it chronologically, as if we're reliving it at the time, December 20, 1968, on the outskirts of Vallejo, between Benicia and Vallejo. These are Northeast Bay Area towns, San Francisco Bay Area. A young couple, David Faraday, 17, his first date with Betty Lou Jensen was that night, and they went out to basically neck at a well-known spot on Lake Herman Road, which, if you know Vallejo, which I suppose most people don't, back then Vallejo was stretching out in one direction to Columbus Parkway, which is a major northeast thoroughfare, though a rural one. It's basically the last cutoff when leaving the Bay Area, or the first cutoff when coming to the Bay Area from Sacramento, from the eastward. And there's it's a long, long road, goes around the foothills and winds around, so it connects between Highway 80 and then goes all the way to Highway 780. And midway in Columbus Parkway, there's another rural road called Lake Herman Road, and that goes to Lake Herman. And then it continues to go on from there to Highway 680. And so it's basically like Highway 80 goes around one way, and Highway 680 goes around Vallejo the other way. It's a fork, then in between is Vallejo and Benicia. So these are major rural roads. These are not backwoods roads, really, but they are country roads. And so on Lake Herman Road, there was this turnout. It's still there. And the kids would go there for petting. It's at the high point in the road. You turn, and you can see it, so all the traffic does go by and sees it when they turn. And the kids would go there and park. And this night they had done so. It was unusually cold. It was 22 degrees. And Stella Borges is leaving from her ranch. She's passing that turnout. Her headlights sweep a Rambler parked there, 1961, 62 Rambler, whatever it was, what year? 64 maybe. And she sees this girl lying on her side right on the edge of the road. And then a young man laying out by the back of the car. Blood trickles from the girl into pools, and the boy apparently was in a pool of his own blood. She hits the gas. It's about 20 after 11, December 20, 1968. She goes ahead to Benicia. She finds a cop parked there on the outskirts. She's honking her horn, and she says what she saw, and Benicia police are there. And the girl, by this time, had rolled over onto her stomach. She was dead, blood trickling from her. The boy was still breathing, his upper body in a pool of his own blood, his arm over his head, his glass ring balancing on the end of his ring finger. And the car was shot up. There was 2 bullet holes in it, one in the top above the door, one that blew open the back window, and a lot more .22 caliber shells around on the gravel turnout. It is Solano County jurisdiction for investigation, so the sheriffs are there. The boy, David Faraday, died on the way to the hospital, and no one took any claim as this double murder. It was chalked up that of a crazed killer, but what he did is he parked next to them. Leslie Lundblatt and Robert Butterbach did a great job back working who was on the road at that time, and a witness passed by just before it happened. He saw a low chrome car parked next to it. He thought he heard a shot about half a mile down the road. And so what apparently the killer did is he got out of his car after parking parallel next to David Faraday's Rambler, probably fired a shot in the air to get him out. Didn't work. He fired a shot through the back window, then went over the top of the door, and they slid out the passenger side door. And he approached them. David was a wrestling champ midweight at Vallejo High. He probably tried to take the guy out because he knew what the score was, and that's how his ring almost came off. He tried to wrestle him. He was shot point blank through the left ear. The killer then got up from the evidence and either told her to run, or she knew to run, or David, before he got shot, told her to get out of there. But the killer then just continued to shoot at her. This was an automatic pistol he was using, .22 caliber. She had 5 bullet holes in her right upper back in a remarkable grouping, in a circular oval grouping. He fired one close enough when she just began because a speck of gunpowder was found. 3 passed through her, 2 remained in her. 1 was found in her bloody wake, so he continued to shoot at her the entire time. And she ran about 30 feet before she dropped. The last one was in the heart. And I'm not trying to be macabre for the sake of it. I want people to understand this is what the guy did. This is what he was. He just took a kid out on his back, point blank in the head, and still had the calm to group his shots. And this 16-year-old girl's back in her purple miniskirt, and just continued to fire at her until she dropped. All the shells were grouped, so he didn't move. He stayed by David's body and just shot away. He must have then walked back to his own car, drove off, most likely toward Benicia.
Right.
And then a few minutes after this, Stella Borges drives past and sees the scene. And so that went completely unexplained for about 7 months. And now we're in the high summer of 1969, 4th of July. Vallejo shoots up fireworks. They have a big regatta over the bay. It's a blue-collar town into shipbuilding. Its traditions go way back, long before Jack London's time. And Blue Rock Springs Park, which is on Columbus Parkway, you go out Spring Streets from Vallejo, turn left, you pass Lake Herman Road on your right. Keep on going, goes uphill, down into the bosom of the mountains. And here's this huge grove of eucalyptus trees. And then this little parking area for two lengths of cars. And that was the parking lot back then. It was a turnout in the road. And this is a very famous park in Northern California. It has its own springs there. That's why it's called Springs Road, Blue Rock Springs, the healing spring. And it's just a huge country park. It has boulders that line the parking lot, an old redwood sign with yellow printing on it, Blue Rock Springs Park. It's actually a very beautiful park, and then all these stand of trees. There's stand of trees even in the parking lot. And so that was a big shindig at the park that night, but by close to 12 o'clock at night, it had all cleared out, and that's where Dee Farron had brought Mike Mayhew. Her buddy's 19, she's 22. She picked him up late, as always. They were supposed to go into San Francisco that day. She's married. She has her husband's a cook at Caesar's. She has a baby girl, but she, kept friends in her, male friends in her life still. She picks him up late on Beechwood, where he lived. And according to him, she wanted to talk. They were famished. They were going to go to Mr. Ed's, but then she says she has to go talk. So they go out Springs Road to Columbus Parkway and pull in to the parking lot at Blue Rock Springs Park, which is completely abandoned now. They're not there long, according to Mike Mayhew. A car pulls down. They're parked crooked. She's got her lights angled at the sign where it used to be Blue Rock Springs Park. Big sign, redwood, yellow writing. She turns the lights off. She keeps playing the radio, so she's not parked in a stall. This car pulls up next to them and stops and shifts. And it's pretty bold. It's not highlighted, why they would be a little, unnerved by this. But since she's parked crooked, this guy's imitating her parking. So he's parked right in the center at an angle to her. Since she knows everybody, Mike says, "Do you know the guy?" And she says, "Oh, never mind." He starts up his car, lights come on. He pulls out and goes back toward Vallejo. Moments later, the car comes back, and this time parks behind them, shining the lights through the car. They're sure it's the cop now. Cop Hoffman, he's frequently, checking the park. And so a big handheld flashlight begins to move around, and that does it for him. They're sure it's a cop. So Mike moves forward to pull out his wallet to show it. At that point, he hears spitting sounds like a silencer, and he's hit in the neck. He's hit, I think, in the shoulder, and Dee Farron is still holding the wheel of the car. She's hit by a few shots, one in her right upper back. One goes through her right arm and out her right arm. It goes into her left arm, then and out her left arm. Another one does the same thing. So she has 8 holes just in her arms and one in her back, just from 3 bullets. The shooter then walks back. His shadow cuts across his own headlights and moves over the inside of their car. Mayhew lets out a cry of anguish. The shadow stops. He comes back, and he stands at the door. The flashlight's on him. He fires 2 more shots. Mayhew's in the back seat now, jumping around, trying to avoid the shots. He gets shot in the knee, and I believe the hip. And then the guy pumps 2 more bullets in the right back, grouping them yet again in the right back on Dee Farron, who's slumped over the steering wheel. He walks out. He walks back to his car. Shadow lumbers over before his headlights again. He gets in, pulls out and around. He doesn't know Mayhew fell out of the car and sees the guy at an angle. He has a big head, big face. He has a car similar to Dee Farron's Corvair, probably a sedan if it was the same, but a larger, so a 4-door version. It's a low chrome car. It's a lighter type of brown. He pulls out and he goes back toward Vallejo on Columbus Parkway. Shortly thereafter, 3 teens come down from the Highway 80 way on Columbus Parkway. They're looking for a friend. They see the car at an angle in the parking lot, and it is a higher elevation than the road, so they're looking up. at an angle, and then the blinker light comes on, and Mayhew falls out from behind it, and they see him, so they go up and look, and here's a guy spitting blood, and get a doc quick. And so they get out of there, those three teens. They go to his house on Castlewood. They call the cops. And the cop who had just checked the parking lot, got 10 minutes before, gets the call, can't believe it. Another cop's in front of him. They both do an immediate U-turn on Columbus Parkway, and they're ripping back past there. And one stops another car coming from their Cadillac. The other one gets up in there. And he's trying to help Mayhew, who's spitting blood. Another cop comes from the other direction, and there's Fair, and all she says is "my," something like that. So it's "I" or "my" for Mike. And that's an enormous, tragic scene, but they're both still alive. While they're on their way to the hospital, Vallejo PD, Nancy Slover, she gets a call, and it's a very carefully worded call from a young man's voice, that there's been a shooting, there's been a double murder at the park, and he gives rather bad directions. And then he says, "I also killed those kids last year."
Wow.
And then he hangs up. Then he says goodbye in a taunting way. He's very monotone. He doesn't let her interrupt him. He says, "I killed those kids last week." Then he changes his inflection to a taunting goodbye, like more's to come. And that is then the first time that there is a confession to the Faraday Jensen murder just up the cross street, Lake Herman Road. People can read the details of that. They don't need to hear all the investigative material there. But a month later, then the Vallejo Times-Herald gets a letter. The San Francisco Examiner gets a letter. The San Francisco Chronicle gets a letter. It's written by the same hand. Kind of a quick, slanted writing. But there's a piece in there, a separate piece of paper with a very neatly done cipher. And it's all one part of the same cipher. And the person demands that they publish this, or he's going to go on a kill rampage. And two of the letters to Vallejo Times-Herald and San Francisco Examiner, he's going to go on a kill rampage if they don't. And he adds something extra in the letter to the Chronicle, that if you crack the cipher, my identity is in there. That's the big hook. The papers acquiesce, and San Francisco is intrigued by these ciphers that are published in these three different newspapers, and then by the claim that this guy is out there, he's going to go on kill rampage, that he's responsible for the Blue Rock Springs shooting. He's responsible for the Lake Herman Road shooting of 7 months before. There's only there's the signature on each letter is a zero with a cross through it. It looks like a gun sight, and that's what people take it to be. The Jack Stilts is chief of police of Vallejo. He doesn't buy into it that the writer is the guy that was at the crime scene. Anybody who had contact with the crime scene could make these statements in the letter as proof. The letters were really not gloating. They were just proof that this person is the killer. So this girl was in this position at the crime scene. I used this type of ammo, and so forth. So the writer is merely trying to show he was there, but Stilts doesn't buy into it. And challenging the killer, maybe he wasn't expecting that. So a few days later, he writes back to the Examiner, and he then introduces it. This is the Zodiac speaking, and he qualifies how he, the writer Zodiac, is indeed the killer. And he gives more information, but most of it's just gloating. It's unrehearsed. His other letters must have been very rehearsed. He probably didn't send them in sooner because the news was consumed with the space launch.
Yes.
To the moon. Now that it's calmed down in early August, he's now sent the letters in. And without carefully preparing, he shows he just has a propensity to brag. A few days later, a couple named the Hardens, Don and Betya and Salinas, crack the cipher. And of course, then it's just gleeful, gloating, simple syntax. I like killing people because it's so much fun. And it goes on from there, and he's collecting slaves for the afterlife. And so everything indicates this is some occult nutcase out of San Francisco, out of the Haight or something, the Haight-Ashbury, that has some kind of hippie religion. And all the letters are mailed in San Francisco. Postmark shows that. And this begins the crime spree of the Zodiac killer. He was more known at this time as the boastful slayer, the code killer, the cipher slayer, because people were so fascinated by that cipher. But nothing happens for 2 months, and the news begins to fade. And then in late September, September 27, there's another young couple. They're way up in the boondocks at Lake Berryessa in the northwest, even further away from the Bay Area now, northeast rather. And now they encounter a guy this late in the evening, close to 6:30. They're just laying under 2 oak trees on a little knoll that goes out into this very, very quiet lake. It used to be a valley, and then they flooded it. It's kind of like a Scottish loch. It's a very long lake with all these little peninsula going out, little fingers, and little lagoons in between them. They're out on the edge of a knuckle of one of these fingers. And that's when it's flooded, it's this little island, but right now the water level is so low that you can walk out there. And a guy pops up behind the 3rd tree, and he's looking at them. He hides behind there. She nudges the guy she's with, Brian Hartnell. Her name is Cecilia Shepard. And then the guy walks out from the tree. He's got this strange hood on his head. He's got an automatic pointed at them. He approaches them. They're up on they're rolled around on their stomachs, and he tells them to take it easy. They're allowed to get up on their knees. And they don't have to go through all the words, but basically he's just telling them he escaped from a prison and he's got to rob them. He needs money and he wants the keys to the car. And so after all this, he finally hog ties them, which is to tie them their wrists behind them and then tie their ankles and then attach the ankles by a rope to their wrists.
Yes.
So they can't do anything. And then he just starts stabbing the boy 6 times. And Brian Hartnell feigns death. She's freaking out, and he starts stabbing her. And she's rolling around and resisting, and he stabs her in the front as well. And so she's stabbed 21 times. The guy then just walks away, and they start talking that they need to get out of there and get help. They get themselves untied. He's jumping up and down. There's a guy out on the lake, Ronald Fong. He comes in closer, sees they're covered with blood and screaming. He gets out of there, goes back, gets a ranger, and they get help. And so they get them both to the hospital in Napa, which is about 45 minutes away. And the rangers and the sheriffs that are up there at that time notice on the side of Brian Hartnell's Carmen Gia, where they parked on the side of the road, on Knoxville Road, that there's this writing. There's the gun sight symbol, and then dates, Vallejo, and then the dates, and then the time and this date, September 27, 1969, 6:30 p.m. And that it's a ledger. And this was basically Zodiac proving finally, because there was still a lot of doubt, that here's his handwriting, the same printing that matches his letters.
Oh, wow.
He's at the crime scene. And that's basically was his motive for writing on the door.
He didn't care. He didn't care, as we only got about 20 seconds here. He didn't care how he killed, as long as he killed or attempted to.
Got the credit now, finally.
Exactly. And that seems what it's all about.
Credit.
Exactly.
He needed the credit.
He got what he wanted. John, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We're going to get really deep into the Zodiac Killer with author Gian Quasar here on Spaced Out Radio. Oh, I love this stuff. This is good radio tonight. It's going to keep you looking all around just to make sure that nobody's watching as you're listening to Spaced Out Radio. All right, John, I'm just going to quickly run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay? You on YouTube, you're going to hear the commercials. We're going to give John a quick couple of minutes here to rest his throat a little bit because he is suffering from bronchitis, and we want to make sure of that. So we'll be right back here in a couple seconds. Spicy tonight. What to do, what to do.
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together, we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows.
Hi, John, I'm back. Back on YouTube.
Okay.
How you guys all doing out there? We've got about 3 minutes. Your voice is holding out pretty well.
I don't know. I can't hear too well because of everything, so I don't know how I sound. I want to impress upon people who are listening that it's very significant. That's not brought up about why Zodiac wrote on the car door. You know, someone made a big deal back in the Midwest recently how this the writer was a hoaxer. had nothing to do with the killers. These were unconnected killings, and they were connected only by this hoax writer who wrote the Zodiac letters. That this is just all bogus, and no one who even has studied the evidence could possibly say that. But this guy got an awful lot of attention, got on a local talk show, all that kind of stuff, and just overlooks the chronology that here on the car door is printing that matches the printing on the letters, and that was the purpose, because Jack Stilts had created such a doubt that was never resolved by Zodiac's letter to the examiner. He just was basically bragging, and then the police couldn't, verify that he had used a little pencil flashlight on his gun. How would they know that? That's just his claim, and so forth. So it's key that people understand the Zodiac desperately wanted ownership to the murders, as something was still coming up. And the base of his whole publicity campaign was that he really did this. This was his resume. And so he went out of his way to write on the car door and make his ledger, and that, the printing would match his writing, so that it was proof that he, the letter writing Zodiac, was one and the same with the guy who was at the crime scene killing. So there's no question that the person who was doing the killing was also the person doing the writing.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. We got about 1 minute here, my friend.
But someone always gets attention for just making these claims that you just don't know what they examine. The letters are all out there. People can Google them and see some rather good copies of letters that the Zodiac wrote, and then pictures of the car door. It's still in the locker at Napa Sheriff's. They still have it as evidence.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's covered in tarp. They've taken it out for cameras once. In 2007, when the movie was coming out, they did these documentaries were made a documentary was made to introduce the movie. They let Brian Hartnell back there actually to see the car door of his old car.
Oh, wow.
And they took the tarp off it, and there was all the writing. You could see how it had faded. You could see all the
Use
purple
promo
dusting
code
from
SOR
fingerprinting.
2019.
Hold on, buddy. Here we go.
.com today.
All right, YouTube, you ready? Here's hour 2 coming up right now. Music's on.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to give a shout out to everybody listening in on our terrestrial affiliates and our digital side of Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jubilarian. Jubilarian is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight we are talking about the unsolved mystery of the Zodiac Killer. Now, this is going back a few decades, but the case still intrigues all of us out there, and author Gian Quasar has been looking into this tonight. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Where we left off, I was telling your YouTube listener, just to underscore that I wanted the listener to appreciate the moment of Zodiac writing on the car door of the Carmen Gia. There was a very decided reason for doing that, and that was the fact that Jack Stilts had made such doubt about the letter writer calling himself a Zodiac, if that really was the same as the killer, or was this just a crank writing letters. And when Zodiac responded, calling himself the Zodiac, in early August, he really didn't clarify things because his letter was basically bragging. And so now on September 27, he clears any doubt by writing on the car door, and the printing does so definitely match the printing of the one calling himself the Zodiac. So it's proof positive that the letter writing Zodiac was in fact at the crime scene. So we have to understand this is some guy who really wanted ownership to the murders. Something was coming up. This was the resume and his game of death. And that's kind of where we are right now.
Was this just about popularity?
No, I think he was already planning on something coming up. He wanted to, from the very beginning, from his letters, it was clear he wanted to panic the metropolis. He was threatening a drive-by shooting. He was going to, kill dozens of, couples if they didn't print his letters. Then he responded quickly and called himself the Zodiac. Just, again, rather poorly boasting, thinking he was really giving viable evidence to the police to prove he did do these. I don't think he was, as I said, was expecting Jack Stilts to question it. And so he wanted ownership to what were, they're not ingenious killings. The murders in Vallejo at Blue Rock Springs Park and Lake Herman Road were essentially drive-by shootings. And then this is countered by his gleeful ciphers saying how he's, hunting slaves for paradise and he likes killing people and all this stuff. And man is the most dangerous game, when he's really just picking off surprised teenagers at petting spots. So his killings were utilitarian and they had a greater purpose. And that had been questioned. And he did not like being, having his alter ego diminished. As I contend in the book, he didn't send anything in July because the news was just all over about the moonshot. In August, again, they come back to Earth. And so he's quiet all that time. And then he strikes on September 27. And she dies on September 29. Brian Hartnell does survive. And then he gets his first major news early October, I think October 2. The East Bay area communities, there's TV news announcing what happened and showing an insert of a sketch from witnesses of a young man walking around the hills of Lake Berryessa during the day. And the sheriffs went and found everybody who was out there, but this one man did not ever turn up again. But so it's publicity toward a purpose. He now has at least, Bay Area news. I don't think it was shown in San Francisco proper. Robert Graysmith didn't. He was there at the time, and he doesn't even remember print media or TV media giving much circulation to this sketch. In any case, October 11 now, the heart of it all, San Francisco. For those who aren't from around here, San Francisco is the city. It's the heart of the whole Bay Area. And it's what Zodiac was basically trying to use as the hub for his publicity campaign. But now, the night of October 11, cab driver picks up a fare near downtown Nob Hill, takes him to Washington Street and Maple, which is Presidio. Very nice area, very upscale. Presidio is this great old fort that goes back to Spanish times, 1790. It's huge. You can lose an army in there. It's the old army base. It was still active back then, but you could drive through lots of it. Huge wooded area. And Presidio is in its shadows, in the shadows of all these great trees and eucalyptus and mountains in there, hills at least. And so Washington and Maple are upscale mansions, crowded together, townhomes. Washington and Cherry, one block up from Washington and Maple. Kids look out from the upstairs window where they're having a party, and they see a guy inside the cab. The cab is parked under the cone of the overhead light. The guy inside the cab, passenger, is going through the driver's pockets and so forth, and then he seems to rub down something around the steering wheel or whatever. He gets out of the passenger side, walks around, does some more wiping with a cloth, walks through the cone of light, and walks down Cherry Street. One street over is Jackson Street, and then there's the Presidio on West Pacific. There's the mansions on Jackson Street. Behind them is nothing but the dark cutout of Presidio. And so they realize something's going on. There's a robbery. They never heard a gunshot, but they know something's up. Call the police. Squad car arrives, and the cops walk out. On the passenger side, the body of the cab driver, Paul Stein. His arms are out over the gutter. His head is almost leaned out the back of it touching the floorboard or the runner, and blood is dripping. It's from his hands, his fingers onto the pavement. And so it was point blank. The killer just put what appeared to be a 9mm and right up to the guy's head, either sitting behind him or next to him in the passenger seat, and killed him and robbed him for very little. Got $11. The detectives, of course, everybody's heard their name. Dave Tosky and Bill Armstrong arrived about an hour later. From the meter, they determined where the guy was picked up. They did this great job at back working where all the fares were so they could eliminate the fingerprints of anybody else who was in the cab. And it's just this pointless, brutal scene of this 29-year-old cab driver who shot in the head for $11 that was on him. And the killer supposedly got away into Presidio. 2 cops were racing by just a few minutes after they got the call. One of them, Don Falk, as most people have heard, saw this lumbering figure walking down toward Maple on Jackson with his hands in his pocket, his head down. He was wearing baggy pleated pants, not the fashion for 1969 anymore. This is something from the 1950s still. A derby windbreaker, so a light blue windbreaker, low-cut shoes. He was wearing glasses. He had a crew cut, what appeared to be a crew cut anyway. And he sees him for 15, 20 seconds as they zoom by, and the guy looks like he turns down to this dead end of Maple, which goes to West Pacific, and that goes into Presidio. People can see all my pictures in the video on the Quester files to understand the location, because I walked it and filmed it. In any case, it's from them, from Don Falk, that the police then believes the Zodiac, the killer, I should say, he's not known who it is. And so the killer then went into Presidio, and the entire search goes over to Presidio, and the searchlights are beaming around in the sky, slicing through there. The dog teams are in there barking, trying to find him. The motorcycle cops are going through this huge area. And so all they have is a cab killing. 2 days later, a letter comes into the San Francisco Chronicle. Letters editor opens it up. Out falls this stained swath of cloth, gray and white stripe, blood on it. In it, there is a letter written in that same very familiar writing that says, "This is the Zodiac speaking." This is the second time he's used it. "This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt." And then it goes on, another paragraph, and it ends with, "School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, just shoot out the front tire, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." And there's the crosshair symbol. So SFPD now has this. There's no reason not to believe this guy. He's shown he has 22s, possibly a 45 at Lake Berryessa, and now certainly a 9mm. They have the casing that was in the car.
Really?
And now he probably has a rifle, and he's going to shoot kids. So now San Francisco, they have to prepare. Newspapers hold off publishing that last part. They now know this is the guy that was known as the Boastful Slayer, which was a more popular term still at that time, who now calls himself the Zodiac, is responsible. And then a couple of days later, the press conference with San Francisco PD prepared. Marty Lee, the head of detectives, he reads the final paragraph, and San Francisco and the whole Bay Area goes into alert. And the police are following bus drivers. The buses, there are 2 drivers aboard in case one gets taken out. The bus drivers are told to keep on driving if the tire's taken out. And so in the rural areas, same thing over the whole Bay Area. Sheriffs, rangers are following the buses. They've got cops on roofs in San Francisco, sniper cops. And it's world news now. Walter Cronkite picks it up. Everybody picks it up. And the nation has now heard of the Zodiac, and he's now they know he's the cipher guy from the summer. And we have an interesting phenomenon where it's an entire autumn of angst, waiting for this guy to fulfill his threat against school buses or to kill someone else. And there's no reason why they shouldn't believe it, considering he has shot 7 people, 5 of whom died and 2 have survived. And this begins the era of the Zodiac. He is now famous, kind of belatedly with his name. And he has all this gratuitous publicity because some poor madman up in Napa says he's the Zodiac and gets Melvin Belli on a very popular show that I used to watch as a kid, Jim Dunbar's show, AM San Francisco. Paul Stein's brother, Joe Stein in Modesto, challenges Zodiac to a duel, and that gets all this news. And it keeps telescoping. The psychologists are giving their opinion. News continues to follow it all. The astrologers are being consulted, and they find out, the police find out, and Marty Lee announces, rather embarrassed, that they had to go talk to astrologers, that the circle with the crosshair is the sign of the Zodiac. It represents the universe, the center of the universe. So they are talking to astrologers to see if they can't learn something about how this guy might strike, what his patterns he might follow. Everything points to this guy's a real wacko from San Francisco, because all the letters are mailed from San Francisco, although he goes out into the boondocks to kill, except for Stein. But Marty Lee is right. He believes that Zodiac has a connection to Presidio because he struck too quickly after Lake Berryessa. And he knew the quiet nature and the routine of the Presidio, and he could not have learned that in just a couple of weeks. So he's sure that Zodiac is some fat paper hanger hanging out in a basement somewhere who has a connection to this one area of San Francisco at least. And all this investigation is going on. There's the Zodiac task force with 10 guys. They're talking to every chiseler, pimp, and prostitute to see who the loner is, who's the guy that had the haircut recently, because the first composite at Napa shows a guy with very obsolete styled hair, from the 50s, combed over. And then Don Falk and the kids see a guy that has a crew cut. And so this happened in about a week or so, that this guy got a haircut. Interestingly, Don Falk didn't know what Zodiac looked like at Lake Berryessa, because Brian Hartnell and the Zodiac and the Napa artist did not finish the full body composite until October 24.
Interesting.
And so Zodiac is there in the composite. He's wearing dark pleated pants, old style, with cuffs. They can identify the shoes are military wingwalkers, Air Force wingwalker shoes from the imprint. So they're a high lip shoe. And he's got a windbreaker on there, dark blue windbreaker. He had a holster and a homemade knife. Then, of course, he's wearing that bizarre hood, this black hood with a square top, like it's a hood sewn very neatly and intricately on all 4 sides over a top that might be like a graduation cap.
Right.
The top appears to be square. And this is what it looks like. But Don Falk, wrote his scratch when they want to know what this guy looked like that he saw. Actually, Zodiac then writes the publicity. By early November, the publicity is dying out. So Zodiac writes another long, long letter bragging about how he saw these 2 cops, and they stopped and asked him, "Have you seen this guy around?" And he said, "Yeah, he's over there," and he points, and they go rushing off. So he brags on the letter, and he insists that they publish that so he can be mocking the blue pigs, as he calls them. And so a couple of days later, Don Falk has to clarify this. He writes what's called a scratch. He says the guy he saw had a crew cut. He was thick. He had brown, rust-colored, pleated, baggy pants, and this windbreaker. So basically, he's describing the guy that was seen at Lake Berryessa, only wearing a different color pants, but still this obsolete pleated pants from the 1950s. So this is what Zodiac looks like without the mask. He is just this heavy, that guy. And at Lake Berryessa, we know he's about 215, 220 pounds because they had the imprint of his shoes. And Harold Snook, the forensic guy, did a good job guesstimating his weight. This is a heavy guy. Don Falk thought he was older than his 30s, but the kids thought he was in his 30s. That he was fairly young. And he confessed after Lake Berryessa as well. And Dave Slate on the phone said it was a young man's voice. So we got a young guy who's heavy set and apparently dresses quite obsolete with these wool dress pants from the 50s and this casual windbreaker. And that's Zodiac without the elaborate black execution hood that had the white Zodiac symbol sewn on front. That's how he appeared only once at Lake Berryessa, which kind of indicates he knew he was going to do a daytime killing. When he attacked at night, he obviously didn't wear a hood. And so now this November, Larry has another, the 340 cipher that no one's ever been able to crack. And that, of course, gives him all this publicity. It's published in all the papers. People are trying to figure it out. Navy's trying to figure it out, the code breakers. Another, proof that he did it. And let me tell you, when you see how careful this guy is with publicity, he waits for it to die off.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does something very careful to get more publicity, like he did with the cipher. That was the biggest thing he did back in the summer. He does another one as the Bay Area edgy. By December, by Christmas time, the publicity has died off. He writes a letter to Mel Belli and tries to disguise his printing to some extent. He includes another bloody piece of shirt from Paul Stein. Belli is in Germany. He doesn't get it till after Christmas when his assistant opens it at the office. The letter, called the Belli letter, is mimicking this poor guy that was known by the nickname of Sam on the Dunbar show on October 22 or 24, whenever that big thing was that got all the publicity. And Belli and Dunbar went to go meet with him afterward. That got, of course, in October, got so much publicity. They both said they thought they were dealing with a kook. Now, this guy was a nut. This wasn't really the Zodiac. This was just some poor, whimpering maniac saying he's going to go nuts and kill the kids. Now this letter is imitating this poor madman Sam, but it is really from Zodiac. There's the piece of bloody shirt. There's the printing that matches. Enormous publicity again, as big as it was in October. Mel Belli, of course, was one of the most flamboyant attorneys in the country. He defended Jack Ruby. He knew all the stars. He was in a Star Trek episode. He was a very famous attorney. Lee Bailey was the famous guy on the East Coast. Mel Belli was the most famous guy on the West Coast in law. And he loved publicity. So this gets publicity everywhere. Paul Avery with the Chronicles involved.
Right.
And this brings us into 1970. And from there, as things die out, Zodiac writes more letters, dovetailing on other news events. And he keeps his publicity going very carefully for several years. Very cleverly, by the end of 1970, when publicity had died out again, because the Chronicle didn't publish with SFPD's request, they didn't publish 2 letters that came in during the summer. And I guess Zodiac figured by this time he's not going to get published with general threats against school buses or whatever, that he killed this other guy. Raditich was a very famous shooting in San Francisco, police officer Raditich in 1970. And, the mayor came back to officiate at the funeral. There were 1,000 mourners. It was all very official. That's when Zodiac makes a claim that he shot a guy in a car with a .38.
Gian, I'm gonna get you to hold on right there, because we got a lot of questions building as we have Gian Quasar talking about the Zodiac Killer and the history right here on Spaced Out Radio. How much more of the history do you want to get into before?
We're just almost done.
Okay. I just want to make sure there's enough time.
5 more minutes.
5 minutes? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just 5 more minutes to introduce what he did with Avery, and so that introduces the Southern California claims, and then that'll bring us to where he then effectively vanished, leaving us with his bag full of claims and 5 dead people and 2 wounded ones.
Very cool. Very cool.
And then that's where it leaves, for decades with everybody claiming what they want and making out of it what they want. But we have to look at the clues, and this leads to one person that I came across.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, we're going to get there. We are going to get there. By the way, big debate going on in YouTube. I would say that Corey, or Corrence, the booking guy, is more like Ron Burgundy than he is Randy Macho Man Savage. I'm just saying that, YouTube. Just saying that. Has the code ever been broken?
On the 340?
Yeah.
No. Any other code he did. I've worked on that forever. There is a code there. The Navy even said there's a code you can easily see. But he did something in breaking it up into 4 parts. We kept it on one page, or he's going one line one way and one line the other. But I have to some extent on a page on the 340 cipher highlighted all the symbols that double or that can be inverted. And so they probably represent either double letters or vowels that are very commonly put together. And, you can invert them. Or like SE and ES, or ED and DE.
Right.
There's a number of those, and you have to guess enough to try and figure out what he's saying, and no one ever has, because I don't think it's going across normally, from left to right like English. I think it's either going left to right and then right to left, making this big Z back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
He's going vertical, or it's to be taken in 4 corners.
Very cool.
There's very different ways to, with his first code, he cut it up into 3 parts. So he didn't make it easy. No one knew who had the first part. Each paper just had 1/3 of it. And so no one knew how to assemble it, where it began and where it ended. Because they were all 17 lines across. 17 symbols across. And how deep was it? I have that file open here, so yes, there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8 down and 17 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yes. So that's what those 3 cryptograms were. They were each written on a separate piece of paper. Very neatly done compared to his writing. He was good at calligraphy as well. You can tell by how he did some artwork.
Mm-hmm. The Cipher of One.
He was capable. The 340?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just all on one page. So he did something else than just writing it out. He divided the first one by 3. So you rest assured, you just don't read left to right on the 340. I thought it might be some kind of treasure map, hide and seek, where he put the keys, the wallet, whatever. Because he took Paul Stein's keys, he took the wallet. So he was taking
souvenirs,
taking evidence he didn't need. Yeah, and of course pieces of the shirt then, as proof.
Was he just ripping the shirt? Because wouldn't that have left fingerprints?
Yes. He just ripped the shirt. It was not cut.
Interesting.
Strong hands. And a guy with a big face.
Interesting.
About 215 pounds. That's what we have to keep in mind. Big face, close to 6 feet tall. 215 pounds. So he was heavy. His gut hung over, but he wasn't blubbery fat. He was he was tight. He was somewhat developed.
Right. All right, we got about just under or just over a minute here.
And that's one thing when everybody you see these like Van Best or something. What's his name? Earl Van Best. They're trying to documentaries trying to show how his son or stepson or whatever it is says that's his dad because he wore glasses like that. Well, those were common glasses back then.
Absolutely.
Zodiac was a heavy guy. He was 215 to 220 pounds. That is, Snook did a good job. Napa County has the most evidence because they have him walking around. They have him seen by more than 5 people. This guy walking around who matches the description. Verified it was a young voice. Yet again, so we know it's a young guy.
Yes.
He got a haircut. He had Air Force Wingwalker shoes. He wore baggy, obsolete pants with pleats. And a windbreaker.
All right, my friend, we only got about 15 seconds. Hey, YouTube, want to remind all of you that a good way to support what we do, we got the Super Chat open. And don't forget to do a little shopping at the SOR Vault on our website. Grab yourself a T-shirt, everything like that, because, it's just nice to have a new T-shirt every now and again. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio. All right, Jen, music's on. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, hanging out with all of you from the Captain's Chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on the SOR Newswire's Captain Shirk updates at daily. We're into an intriguing conversation tonight with author Gian Quasar, who is breaking down his latest book about the Zodiac Killer. And he's breaking down the entire history of this. And, John, I am absolutely fascinated here by listening to you describe in detail every step that he made.
Well, it's because there are some key clues. I had to go do this before I could even go through a list of persons of interest, just who was I looking for? What did Zodiac actually look like? What was his character really like? And you're not going to see that in the letters where he's, he knows what he's writing. It's to be seen. It's stuff that he's doing he doesn't want to be seen that will really give it away. So I had to, frankly, go through all this rather than just, so many people introduce a suspect out there, both in a book or on the web, where they gloss over the crimes simply as an introduction to their suspect now, and he really doesn't fit. He wears glasses like the San Francisco composite. Well, a lot of people wore those glasses. But I had to go in and find out and, just get what is the profile of this guy. So I want the audience to know certain points that are, written in stone that are key clues. And one is that he did not kill after Stein, but he built up toward San Francisco, and then he carefully put the, killed now in the city. This gets San Francisco's attention. He carefully puts that paragraph on there about shooting kids in the school bus. And he later in the letter said, you must have holes in your head if you think I'm going to take a school bus on like that. This is all to incite panic. It's all to get publicity. It is all to loom over Gotham like a comic strip villain, which is what he did. He's the most famous serial killer, outside of Jack the Ripper in the world of true crime. And he really was basically a Lover's Lane killer who was extremely brilliant with his publicity campaign. And he put careful thought into that, and we have to understand that. But he was, as we were touching on before, a very plain-looking man in real life. He was heavy, 215 to 220, 6 foot or under. Not blubbery fat, but beefy. He was overweight. He was heavy. He had a big face. And And he was someone who bragged only after killing Stein. He bragged about all these other murders. He claimed 37 eventually. But he sat back and carefully dovetailed off of all the publicity he got, which is what I was leading into at the summer of 70 when they didn't publish his letters. He realizes that, a general threat isn't going to go anywhere now. So he sends this Halloween card to Avery. Well, Avery, who was the true crime writer of the Chronicle and covered everything Zodiac had been doing. And so it's the famous Halloween card where he basically says, you're going to be number 14. You're doomed. And so, of course, this gets, Avery all this attention. It merits world news. Herb Cain, who was San Francisco and the Chronicle's #1 columnist, writes a column about it. Zodiac is big news again. And with this, some anonymous person in Riverside wrote to Avery, believing that more should be looked into this murder down there in 1966. Also, the day before Halloween, October 30th, murder of a co-ed, Sherry Jo Bates. And indeed, the chief of police in Riverside had contacted Napa before and brought it to their attention. And Napa's Sheriff Earl Randall didn't think there was any connection. But now Avery decides to look into it, and he becomes convinced from this information packet he got that Zodiac was involved in this Riverside murder in 1966. This makes him definitely connected with Riverside College and the town, and the writing of a confession letter there that bears similarities in style, although it's typed, but has a tongue-in-cheek style to it like Zodiac's black humor. And then 3 notes written in April 30, 1967, after the local paper did a big six-month anniversary. And lo and behold, this is big news. Avery breaks it. San Francisco PD, Napa, they go down there to talk with Riverside PD. Riverside PD denies there's a connection. They know who it is. The jilted lover. And they don't want to buy into this. Zodiac writes his first letter in a long time now. It's to the Los Angeles Times. He mails it from Pleasanton, a town in the East Bay, the only time he didn't mail anything from San Francisco. And he takes credit. He compliments the cops for finding his Riverside activity, but he says there's a hell of a lot more down there. Over time, this opens up the double murder of Bobby Dominguez and Linda Faye Edwards at a remote beach, Gaviota, which is just south of Lompoc. It's north of Santa Barbara. This was in 1963, June 4, 1963. They're shot up by a .22 automatic as well after the killer tried to bind them. It's a rural area. Zodiac knew rural areas where kids hung out. This was a parking area up on the road when Highway 101 was just a slow 2-lane highway by the coast. You walk down the canyon there at the beach is where it all happened. With time, then, this calls attention to another couple shot up by a .22. About 7-8 months later, in February 1964 in San Diego at Ocean Beach. Johnny Ray and his new wife, Joyce Swindle. Someone stood up on the ice plant of the slope from Narragansett with a .22 automatic pistol and shot both of them as they were cooing near Valentine's Day. They had a heart of candy there. They were on the Bulwark, for those who know the area, at the end of Narragansett at Sunset Cliffs. And he hit them both in the left back, going for the heart first. He hit them in other parts of the arm, so forth. He then walked down 50 feet of the ice plant slope along the boardwalk and shot them each in the head. She was dead. He survived for a while and died in the hospital. At that time, the sheriffs in Santa Barbara also tried to link the cases, but they said it was a similar type of weapon, but no link was ever officially made to this 1964 San Diego murder. And now recently, people have heard about the murder of Ray Davis, a cab driver in Oceanside, which is just north of San Diego. This was in 1962 by someone he's a cab driver. The fare kills him. in Oceanside, dumps his body in an alleyway behind the house of the current mayor of Oceanside. And across the alleyway is the house of the former mayor of Oceanside. The killer shot this guy with a .22. He took his cab, then drove it off South Pacific and parked it up there and vanished. But it turns out he had called the police before saying he was going to do something really baffling. They're not going to be able to figure it out. He calls a week after and tells them, remember, I called you. So now they know this wasn't a crank. It really was him. And he's now going to go after a bus driver. So it's kind of like the Zodiac in reverse, where in 1962 it starts with cab driver, then a couple more couples are nailed at the coast. And there's great debate about Sherry Joe Bates, whether Zodiac wrote the letters to get a thrill by proxy. It doesn't appear he really did kill her. It's a very different type of murder that doesn't fit. In any case, all this has been opened up to this day and overlaid upon the foundation of the known Zodiac crimes in the Bay Area starting in 1968 and the letters he wrote until January 1974 when he wrote his last letter as the Zodiac saying, quoting from the Mikado about the suicide's grave, and it's from a song that Coco sings to Katisha in the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. And he claims 37 victims, San Francisco PD 0, meaning they never got him. And sure enough, he never writes a letter as the Zodiac again, but he does write a few more that very year, one on St. Valentine's Day about the Symbionese Liberation Army. They had just gotten Patty Hearst, so big news. They just signs it a citizen or a friend, something like that. It's a card. And he writes a letter about the movie Badlands, saying how terrible it is that they're promoting this movie about murder. And it's now, there's no misspelling. Zodiac would misspell terribly in all of his letters, just ridiculously so, just to make them try and put all the misspelled letters together to see if he was writing another code. It was all a brain game. And then, I guess it's July 1974, he writes a rant against the Count Marco column. Writes in very elegant, nice writing, but you can see it's still a Zodiac. He writes perfectly, spelling is perfect, psychologically, he spells perfectly. And he signs it the Red Phantom, red with rage. And the envelope is almost identical to the envelope to the Badlands letter or to the SLA letter. And after that, there's nothing. Zodiac vanishes. He burned brightly as a killer in 1969, sent everybody into this panic over a few years, writing letters that he's going to kill again, but never did. And he vanished, and he never wrote another letter, despite all these people proffering letters that Zodiac wrote with or with the symbol. He made it very plain in 1974 with his letter commenting on The Exorcist, which had just come out. It was the biggest thing. Again, he liked publicity. And he said it's the best satirical comedy he's ever seen. And he never wrote again as the Zodiac, and it was over in 1974. And that has put us into the world of silence. There was a hoax letter in 1978 that got Dave Toschi in trouble because it was declared original, authentic for a while before it was realized that it appears to be a tracing from some stuff that was published in the paper. And then Robert Graysmith wrote his book Zodiac, starting in 1976, and introduced us to a few very well-known names for those who follow it, like Rick Marshall, who was a movie projectionist, and he was considered suspect by someone who turned him in back in 1976. And Zodiac in his cipher said, man, it's the most dangerous animal of all. And the most dangerous game was an old movie and book about a mad Count Zarhoff who hunted people on an island, shipwrecked people on an island.
Right.
The man was the most dangerous game of all. So he was suspected because he did old movies, but he was a guy middle-aged, really fat middle-aged, sounded more like W.C. Fields. And we all heard of Lee Allen, who lived in Vallejo and was a pedophile turned in by a sister-in-law. And with the publishing of his book in 1986, it was an enormous bestseller, and this really gave us the legend of Dee Farron and New Zodiac, and that she was the center of it all, and he was her stalker. And others realized that the stalker was actually Bill Grant, and they believed he was responsible. And then there was a book written just before or after Grant died by a California highway patrolman that said he was the Zodiac. Someone else has claimed it's his father, Earl Van Best, or something is the name. And others have claimed there was the big deal about the Mensa member, who said it was this professor back east. Others have said it was Kaczynski. And they're looking at San Francisco's composite done by those kids that saw this guy at an angle and said he's about 150, 170 pounds. And we're looking at this skinny mongoose-looking figure wearing glasses. And this is what became so famous that people have basically based their suspect on resembling this sketch, which bears no resemblance to the evidence that is very tangible. The Schvel Qualley, who my father was personally acquainted with, became quite a famous suspect recently when someone in New Jersey named him, called him Mr. X for so long, and then finally was so convinced because he looked like that composite that he named him. And Qualley called him an SOB and was going to sue him for that, and took the DNA test at 90 years of age, and didn't match the stamp at all that they had. But Schell Qualley was like 49, 50 years old back in 1969. So was Bill Grant, who apparently was Dee Farron's stalker in the white car. These guys could not possibly have been Zodiac. He was a young guy with a young voice. He was heavy, 215 to 220 pounds, 6 foot or under, and had access to Air Force shoes, and had writing that was very consistent. Even when he tried to vary it, it was clear it was him. And these are valuable clues that led me on. And no one, there's not a lot of books been written, surprisingly, but a lot of speculation is out there on the web. And Zodiac has gotten lost in all the speculation. And that's why I decided to put up a section of the Quester Files to the Zodiac Killer. But I wouldn't have to do it in my book. I started my own investigation on these clues and went back to see who fit, who had an Air Force connection, who was young at this time, who had a big face and fits the weight, and who got a haircut, and a haircut that would look like a crew cut, who would have stylized hair and then would have a haircut, who would get away with looking so obsolete. And I came across Steve in a rather strange way. And going over, let's just say at this point, several paths met. And I was looking for someone with the surname of Beard. And it did not turn out to be a Beard. And by coincidence, when I was looking for someone with that surname, someone emailed me and said, "Did you look into this guy? He lived in Lompoc, and this was his surname." And my guy was Beard. And it wasn't the guy I was looking for, but I thought this is very curious, and I looked into it. And yeah, these guys looked like the San Francisco composite. They had a Welsh surname. Don Falk was sure this guy had Welsh heritage that he saw. But as I investigated more, I realized that Zodiac was this heavy-set guy with full hair. He was not bald like Lee Allen.
Right.
He wasn't wearing a toupee. That's all stuff made up to try and make Allen fit. And he had brown hair, according to Celia Shepard and Brian Hartnell. They could see some of it greasy hanging down by glasses under his hood. He had shades clipped onto his eye holes in his hood. And so brown, excuse me, brown hair. And I was working on Steve at the same time, too, and began to gravitate toward him because of his weight. He came from Kansas. He would have had a bit of a drawl. He had an interesting history in which his mother kind of brought him out here to finish high school. He went into the Air Force. He got a college degree in psychology, but really didn't go anywhere with it. He went into the Air Force instead, and he was stationed in Texas the whole time, except for a short trip overseas to a rather restricted air base. In Texas, he was at Lackland Air Force Base, where they all have to be trained. They all wear wing walkers. That's standard issue. He was transferred to Amarillo Air Force Base. So he would have picked up the Texas. It was believed when Zodiac used the term, please fiddle and fart around, that was a Texas expression around that area. So if that is true, he certainly had access to it. He had access to wing walkers. He looked like some of the composites. I had to wait a while and finally get his stats, and he was 215 pounds, brown hair, blue eyes, and he was exact right height, 5'11". And so that kept me going. And it took a long time through a lot of channels to get more and more military records. Under my media coverage, I could only get the basic things years ago in 2013, I believe. And they gave me this lousy little Xerox of his induction photo and a few pieces of paper where he was stationed and so forth, and that didn't do much at all. I wanted printing. Years later, I approached them again and said what I suspected him of. Well, that got me a couple extra pages, but boy, they gave me nice photographs and an extra one as well. His full uniform, 1966 date on it when he was made a lieutenant. And this was the oldest I'd seen him now, and it was to look at Zodiac with his stylized hair, but cut short, and it looked like a crew cut. If you look straight at him, you couldn't see the part because he parted it low. So he looked like a crew cut even when he didn't have one. And then even longer than that, I finally got a lot more records. And because I thought, this is still, I have the guy that has the right size, the face, the background in the Air Force, the drawl that Hartnell heard, some kind of Midwest drawl, a cadence, actually, he said. And I finally got more records and found out that Steve, I began to find out his background, what his birth was, that it was, shall we say, the wrong side of the sheets, and what his mother was like. She eloped. She had him by the doctor's son, who was not a fancy that was going to make a good marriage, but she gave him his biological father's surname. She got back, after
we have about a minute.
Bomber pilot got back from World War II. Okay.
Go ahead.
After a man came back from World War II, she married him. He adopted Steve, gave him his surname. He went into school and designed aircraft and would later work for Boeing, Beechcraft, all that. And avionics is one of those rare professions that has to know what a radian is, what Zodiac talked about, radians. And these are all nice little clues, but still it wasn't evidence yet. And I continued to look into the mother's background. It was very interesting. She wouldn't have any more kids. And so what the home life was like, I really don't know. The stepfather was very retiring. But then she did not like life in Kansas. She wanted to live a more exotic life of a beautician.
Right.
And she runs off with the stepdad's friend in a secret marriage. And I found it by accident, this wedding they had in Missouri. He dropped dead soon thereafter.
Gian, on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on as hour 3 of Learning About the Zodiac Killer with author Gian Quasar continues right here on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. All right, my friend, I'm just going to quickly run my dogs outside. I'll be right back.
That's fine.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
We're taking Sunday nights out of this world on Spaced Out Radio. This is Michael W. Hall, also known as the Paranormal Lawyer. Together, we're going to go on an exciting journey into the unknown. I'm going to bring you some of the best interviews in the paranormal and supernatural to start your new week off on a freaky note. So tune in to Spaced Out Sundays with me, Michael W. Hall, only on spacedoutradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spicing up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
All right, boys and girls, I am back.
On Spaced Out Radio.
John, how are you?
I'm still hanging in here.
Dude, I cannot believe how much you are, how knowledgeable you are on this. You've got this thing memorized.
8 years following this guy, trying to get what the actual evidence was first, so I knew who to follow. But his mom was something else, let me tell you. Running off on a secret marriage while she's still married. Running off with a work buddy. It's like something out of Peyton Place.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
And then he dies right afterward. His wife is listed right away that same year in the directories as his widow. And that's when she cut out of Kansas with her boy.
Mm-hmm.
Took him to San Francisco, where he doesn't stay very long, but you can guess what place he knows. It's Presidio.
Yeah.
But when she pops up in Carson City to marry another guy, she uses her last husband, his stepfather's surname, but she uses the bigamous marriage surname
right
in business in San Francisco because it was a French surname and had an upmarket sound.
Well, we got 30 minutes to hammer this home, my friend. 30 minutes.
That'll be enough.
Perfect.
It's unfortunate I cannot, divulge more both in writing, but there are so many people who just have the legend in their mind that they want to try and find out who the suspect is to try and smear it, try and start a stink. He's got family. I don't need a stink without an official declaration from a jurisdiction or, I still had not gotten, I was just now getting to where I actually got the handprinting finally and got information on why he got put away in observation for 4 months before they'd even release him from the Air Force.
Right.
And everything but Section 8. They honorably discharged him, but it's clear from the psychiatric profile that he was a danger to the Air Force and himself, they believed. And he began to show those signs when he got his overseas posting, which he must have just lasted a couple of months there before they took him off to Hickam Field and started going at him and then put him in the hospital in Texas for 4 months, even though the psychiatrist said, he's to be discharged, but they didn't. They had, probably a case they wanted to examine, a free guinea pig, and they kept him in observation for 4 months before they discharged him honorably, gave him his back pay, and that was in the summer of '67. And with his mother's rather unusual and unstable background.
Yeah. It's almost like he had no hope.
Zodiac liked to shoot the girl the most.
Yeah. No kidding.
And his Air Force background, and I think he became quite anti-establishment, especially after Air Force psychiatrists of the 1960s. Remember the theories back then.
All right, hold on, John. We're just about to come back. Music's on.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour is underway tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to give a shout out to Kevin and Kevin's Beard down in Texas, all locked down, hanging out, listening with his daughter, Sage. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good to have you back in the chat rooms, Kevin and Kevin's Beard, two separate entities. We want to give a shout out to everybody listening in on our terrestrial affiliates and on our digital side on Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jubilarian. Jubilarian is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and doing a little shopping at the SOR Vault. Don't forget Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire coming up as well. Tonight we are talking with author Gian Quasar. We have been learning all night long about the history of the Zodiac Killer and who he believes actually did it. It's a deceased man named Steve. He's written all about it. Gian, welcome back to the show. Better let everybody know where they can pick up your book.
Well, it's not out yet. I'm held back because of the delay in investigation. I waited to go forward after turning him in officially, and now I have to make that choice to go forward with a fistful of attorneys, since there is family, and no one's going to like their relative being accused of this, and then all this information out there. So right now, that's the stymie with going forward with Horoscope, is that I was not expecting snags behind the scene. It's easier when you're writing just an accusing tome against, some dead relative of yours, But that's not what I do. I don't have that luxury. This is someone who shows all the evidence for having been the Zodiac, and even has handprinting that matches. And again, they can go to my website. I have shared some of this on the updates page. So horoscope is not out yet. They're going to have to just look at updates page, see my blog. I have a separate blog to my website, which they can see a link to, and I do discuss more of this on the blog with WordPress. But suffice it to say, there's a lot of details that one bring you to him, and then that kept me going until I finally got the admissible evidence, which came in 2 points. Finally, I got more details that Steve was, in that brief overseas posting he had, he basically began to show unusual signs that got him brought before the medical examiner, and he was sent to Hickam Field, and he was showing some mental problems that got him diagnosed with anxiety reaction, with all these manifestations, including insomnia, but he, and many others we don't have to go into here. But one thing is he was a psychologist, though he didn't practice it really. He was in the Air Force. He was not doing that kind of work. But back then, I had to study psychology's attitudes back then. To be depressed was a manifestation of anxiety reaction. And if you claimed you were depressed, you were psychotic. Depression was a psychosis back then. Today, it's not considered that. And Steve knew enough. The psychiatrist even said on the writing there, patient denies all else. And that's it. I don't know what he was denying, but when you study the diagnosis, he had to be denying some of these manifestations that the doctor probably didn't believe, the denial. So I suppose they suspected he was, by their definition, psychotic. And instead of following the doctor's recommendation, who became a very well-known psychiatrist, this wasn't a bumbling Air Force doctor, he became a major psychiatrist at a major university, and which would be Yale. And so instead of releasing him from the Air Force on psychiatric reasons with an honorable discharge, he was shipped off back to the States, where he was held under observation in the ward of the hospital. What they did, I don't know. Why, as I speculated behind the scenes during the commercial, this was the 1960s. They were up to some very interesting theories back then. Here they had a subject for free, and I don't know what they put him through for 4 months before they let him out. But they certainly thought he was a danger to himself in the Air Force. He was not even recommended for isolated duty before they shipped him back. So how anti-establishment would this have made Steve? Here he's got a mother with a very unusual background. I can't tell you all the husbands she had. One that could have easily taught him drafting, one that taught him about aircraft design, and then he was in the Air Force. He has everything applies to being Zodiac, except I was missing, one, what's the motive for this glamorous alter ego that he had to create? But in the crimes of the Zodiac, you see he really went after the women the most. He had a mother that really, had a very colorful background, gave him a parentage that was not considered the best at the time. But if that's all, he became a jilted sexual killer or something of women at petting spots, or I suppose is how he was conceived. I don't know. Why the Zodiac? Why the alter ego? Why this grand facade? And so I have to, study more of what could they possibly have been up to with him. He certainly became anti-establishment. The Zodiac's whole purpose was to shake up the establishment.
Right.
Was to inflict terror in San Francisco. That was his goal. It hadn't worked until he finally killed Stein and then threatened to shoot school children, and that got him everything he wanted, and then he stopped killing. He just kept feeding off of that with more very strategically planned letters to dovetail on any publicity. And here you have this, the first time it's ever done since Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper also began to do this when he saw he could upset the system, the delicate social system of 1888. He started doing that. Zodiac seems to be evolving in front of our eyes. He doesn't take credit for killing 2 kids, really shooting the girl to pieces. He takes credit after Blue Rock Springs Park 7 months later, and it goes from there. But he invents this massive terror campaign in print and gets away with it, and then fades into obscurity and had been living a very normal citizen's life. And I came across that seemingly normal citizen, and after years tracking him and everything, as people have heard, I finally got military writing. And he slants his writing. He makes the same 2 different kind of S's the Zodiac makes. He makes the same type of letters. You can see how Zodiac was trying to disguise his printing. I got handwriting, and comparing to the Badlands letter, in which Zodiac thought he was disguising who it was. He just signs it a citizen. He makes such a radically different B. People should look at this online for Badlands. It's a handwritten B, completely radically different from his normal Zodiac B. He's not disguising his P in the Badlands letter. It's a 1-stroke P, like we mostly make, whereas in the Zodiac letters, it's a 2-stroke P. And it's comparing all these, which Sherwood Morrill, the handwriting expert, didn't have before him. He was doing this piecemeal. I had all the letters, and then Steve's writing. You can see his handwriting, how he's making letters just like this B, the P's, because it's not being disguised. And then his printing on his own chits. The numbers match. He had great variation in his numbers. He would obviously sit and do things very calmly sometimes, and then write hastily, and it matches both times. And so here I have a guy who's 5'11", has the same weight, has the same type of hair, does need to wear glasses, and was in the Air Force at the right time, was booted out for psychiatric reasons, and now find out he was a psychologist. I find out Zodiac's letters, looking at them again. He never says he's depressed. That would destroy the image of the Zodiac back then and reduce him to a psychotic by the theories of the time.
Right.
And a psychologist would know this. But Zodiac says he's not happy. He's displeased. If they did this and that, it would cheer him up. He avoids saying depressed.
Right.
And so things begin to fit more than this with someone who does have psychology as a background and who is far from the pool hall punk language Zodiac uses. This is an educated man from the Midwest, and his writing matches. I can even rearrange words and letters he used, as I did with Kill, and I compared it to Zodiac's, and, he even does a little thing with lifting the pen and makes that little jog at the end of a letter, and they slant and curve the same way. And so after all that, I realized I had enough at least to present to the police, and I sent in a packet, called them, sent it in, even sent fingerprints. I got fingerprints. And I figured they would backwork that, but I suppose even without the DNA now, there's a holdup. And apparently after 2 years, without advancing on DNA genealogical research, they can't trace him. But, obviously they're not communicating. I gave them his birth name. I gave them his adopted surname. I gave them the mother's background. I mean, they could use that somehow. And well, I don't know how close a relative he might have had, frankly.
Right.
But the DNA, I suppose they'd have to go to a relative living, and maybe they don't want to do that right now. I can come up with all kinds of excuses, or maybe all my information was lost. So I proceed on my own I had promised I would do it the way going to the police first, like I did with the East Area Rapists. I got invited in unofficially by the supervisor in one jurisdiction to give all my information on my persons of interest to them, and they would triage them, which they did. They were very fine investigators in Orange County. The lead detective in Sacramento said he would triage and get back to me on suspects. So I was very well treated with the East Area Rapist case because everybody knew of my website. Everybody went to it. I had 1.5 million readers on that alone. And I had said I'd do the same thing with Zodiac. But amazingly, it is not as popular as D'Angelo's case became. It's almost like everybody just sucked into the void of the East Area Rapist, and I just quietly went along behind the scenes with Zodiac investigation. And then after everything calmed down, a year later, I finally get what I've been searching for so long. And now a year later, I have to proceed on my own eventually, and that requires a lot of legal protection. Because, I'm going to show evidence. I'm going to show printing that is, well, people can go look at it on my website. I've shown enough of it. I can link it to the whole body, the whole corpus. I had to examine it all. And most certainly the Badlands letter just pegs it the best. And it convinced me, with everything else that I had, that I found the heavy-set guy. I found his mental problems. I found out where he was going with it all. It's something about his mother. I don't go into all the psychobabble stuff, but it does fit his mother's background. And certainly something turned him very anti-establishment. He actually gets a government job soon after he's out where he has to have a gun. I'm trying to figure out how that happened with his discharge, for mental reasons. But I guess they don't look at that. But he did have a government job where he had to pack a gun.
He was obviously a sharpshooter in order to be so accurate with his shooting.
Yes. That is his one medal. In all his time in the Air Force, he had one ribbon, and he was an expert, actually. Sharpshooter is a lower rank. He was an expert with small arms, which means he had to hit the head target 10 times out of I forget how many shots, and the torso, out of I don't know how many shots, but he easily passed. And he wore, I have the picture of him, which will be in the book, but his uniform, that's his one ribbon on there, is his expert in small arms. There's 3 levels. That would be marksman, which is most any serviceman, sharpshooter, which is the next level, and then expert. That is the highest rate you can go in shooting in the military.
Right.
And that most certainly was Steve.
I got a question about the police. Since you have brought this to them, and this is still technically an ongoing investigation, why has there been, in your opinion, as we got about 5.5 minutes to go with you tonight, so much holdback on the information that you are providing?
Oh, they can choose to do that. It's all elective on their part. They are not obliged to get back to me. They're not obliged to get back to anybody. They will probably try and categorize me as a tipster rather than an independent investigator, despite the publicity I do have. They don't have to get back to a tipster about anything. It was over years that on the East Area Rapist case and all the information and my theorizing and all the investigation I did, showing it in pictures, all the boots on the ground. I was not just someone who was sitting around, writing off the top of his head online. It took that for the supervisor to reach me officially with the district attorney email, and then they would get back to me. So I was then trusted, and then a little while later, Ken Clark, who was the lead detective in Sacramento, wanted to talk to me, and he said he doesn't play the game of getting back to people because you never know what's going to happen. With some of these people go nuts on you when you get rid of their suspect. But he said with me, he would do that, which he did. It was a very open communication, but it's not something they have to do. And the East Area Rapist case really soured a lot of police on working with independent investigators, because there was one who started slandering a district attorney special investigator on Twitter and online who was helping him, and this guy could not handle that his suspect was triaged out. He was not the East Area rapist. And he insisted that there was corruption and conspiracy, and this district attorney special investigator was going to go to jail for this. And he was saying this investigator's name, he was showing his picture, he was showing his badge, he was showing the email communication.
Oh, wow.
And this was a man who was a special investigator in Sacramento who did nothing but good for this guy and would actually get back to him on information, which, as I'm pointing out, is a very rare thing. And with Zodiac, the detective has chosen not to do that. He did not even acknowledge my email, and I asked him, at least let me know you got the attachment. So that's the first time I've experienced that. But with the others, I even had FBI answering me because I would forward persons of interest to the FBI when people would turn them into me.
Interesting.
And they would at least acknowledge. The FBI doesn't tell you details, but at least he would acknowledge he got my emails and got the information.
Do you think it's because they are so sick and tired of people trying to solve this case that it is nothing personal comparatively to,
Well, yeah.
You think that's
I don't
what
think
it
it's
is?
personal. I think they don't want to get burned by someone else who has publicity. They may not even know who I am, this
Right.
individual detective. They just may have believed that since one jurisdiction submitted DNA, it's going to go that way. The detective is more interested in getting my name down and everything for his official report to his superior, the sheriff.
Yeah.
And so, I did my duty. I gave them 9 pages of all this that they could easily backwork. I gave them the fingerprints, and if they wanted more, you could come to me, and I gave them the contacts in the military and everywhere where they could go get their own copies of everything. So they didn't have to trust me at all. So they could backwork me completely. And I think they just wait on DNA. It's safer. Maybe they can take the credit more instead of, saying someone else did it finally. And we just dotted the I's and crossed the T's. Who knows? I know some detectives that have no pride whatsoever. They don't care who gets the guy. Some do. And since I don't know any of them personally, unlike with the other case, I don't know what plays into it. I may have simply gotten lost in the shuffle, and they're waiting to a formal announcement, and they said, yeah, no, this guy was turned into us a year ago by so forth and so on. We were working on it. So technically, this other jurisdiction didn't solve it. He did. He's got the information online, a picture of the guy and everything. Who knows what would go on? But the way when the East Area Rapist case was cracked, I was amazed at who was taking credit and getting all this news coverage, and I knew they didn't have anything to do with it. But it came down to just a couple of people who finally tracked him in DNA in a genealogical database. But all these different people up the ladder of the monkey book saying, oh, well, I ordered someone to do this. So, they got New York Times coverage and all this, but they didn't do squat.
Right. Well, John, I got to, at that point of night that it is right now, I got to say goodnight to you and say keep up the fantastic work on this, because you're extremely knowledgeable about this and very, very detail-oriented. And I think you may be onto something. You may have cracked the case, man.
People can check it out, what I've presented online, or they can follow me on Twitter or Facebook and keep up to date.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio again, and let us know if there's anything interesting that pops up that you need to get back on the air with us.
Well, thank you very much. I'll do that. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. Gian Quasar, everybody. You can find all his books on Amazon as well. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Yeah, we're right there, man. We're right there. We're just about to round that corner. What a great show tonight with Gian. Great show with Gian. We learned a lot about the Zodiac Killer. The news is next. Stay tuned. Great show, buddy. Fantastic.
Thank you very much. You take care.
Absolutely. You too. And good luck with your bronchitis. Try the hot sauce, man. Try the hot sauce.
I will.
Order up some.
I'll try some salsa.
Yeah, order up some real steamy hot sauce, man. Hotter the better. And within a few days, it's going to hurt like hell going out or coming in and hurt like hell going out. But guaranteed, man, within like 4 or 5 days, you're going to be feeling better.
Okay, I'll try that.
All right, take care, my friend.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Damn it, was he smart on this topic? Talk about being right on it. Seriously, talk about being right on it. That was quite impressive. Quite impressive. I gotta get the news ready. I gotta get the news ready here on the Mighty SOR. Where did Captain Shirk go? Here. You're right, Corey. You don't want to piss off Captain Shirk by missing the news 2 nights in a row. Holy Hannah, would she hang me. Holy Hannah, would she hang me. Let's see what we got here. Yep. There's 1. There is 2. There is 3. 3 news stories. 4 news stories. The bird poop frog. That's going in. 5 news stories. 6 news stories. That's 6, yeah. 6. 7 news stories. Do we have 8? Let's see. Oh shit. Accidentally closed that window. But oh goodness, 1 too many paths. We better put in 1 more just in case. Let's see if we can find 1 more weird one here. I love the count. I hated him as a kid. Right? All right. Nothing there. Let's go here, see if we can find 1 more just to have some filler. Oh, this is a good one. I'll put that one in there. Okay, we gotta make sure all these tabs are muted. Mute. Oh, better mute that one. Mute. Where'd I go there? All right. The count. 1 news story. 2 news stories. 3 news stories. Anyways, enough of that. I'm bored of it. I am bored of it. You know, it's amazing. You know, hey, Corey, I know you're listening to this right now. It's amazing, like, looking at our show numbers right now. We got like 26 people watching live. We bring on the wooiest of woo. This place is packed. We get like 45, 50, 60, sometimes. Well, we hit like 71 live viewers. And then we bring in a topic like this that is just absolute. I realize John did a lot of talking through this interview, but I mean, he was brilliant tonight. Brilliant. And it just makes me look here and I'm like, 27. People love the woo, man. As much as we got to bring them like the true crime and everything like that, people love the woo. It's just something to watch. It's an interesting trend. Interesting trend. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. We got like 45 seconds or so here. One news story. Two news stories. 30 seconds. 29 seconds. 28, 27, 26. I don't know. There we go. Hold on. 26, 25, 24. Oh, that's going to get old real fucking quick. Okay, here we go. You ready for some news, people? Ready for some news? Let's do this thing, eh?
Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
.cam. .cam. My buddy Everett. .cam. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. My hair is flowing nicely. And if you're not watching it on YouTube, well, I'm telling you, you are missing out. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you. You can get your horns up and rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping. I don't think I'm allowed to say that on the one station because that's advertising for myself. May have to edit that part out. And, of course, you could read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire as well. Speaking of the news, let's get to it, shall we? The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and, of course, what's going on in the world today. Here's a little bit of a scary one. Doctors across the country in the United States are deciding whether to adopt standard policies for not resuscitating patients with coronavirus in an effort to curb possible virus exposure for medical staff. In Chicago, the Northwestern Memorial Hospital has been debating how to implement a universal do not resuscitate policy for infected patients. The policy would void the wishes of the patient or of their family members. The death toll for COVID-19 in the U.S. has risen to 1,000, with more than 68,000 confirmed cases so far. And the burden of the pandemic continues to intensify in hospitals across the country. Richard Wunderink, there we go, an intensive care medical doctor at the Chicago hospital, said administrators have asked Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker for assistance in clarifying how state law would permit a policy shift. It's a major concern for everyone, he explained. Yeah, this is something about which we have had lots of communication with families, and I think they are very aware of the grave circumstances. Wundering did describe patient health as a steady decline rather than a sudden drop, given medical, professional, or personal time to discuss plans with family members. Similar discussions around not resuscitating have been taking place at the George Washington University Hospital in D.C. as well. They've decided, however, to continue using modified procedures to resuscitate patients with coronavirus, including putting plastic sheeting over patients to create a barrier. At the University of Washington Medical Center in Seattle, the number of responders sent to contagious patients in cardiac or respiratory arrest has been limited. Atrium Health in the Carolinas, Geisinger in Pennsylvania, and Kaiser Permanente networks are just some of the large hospital systems across the country that are determining whether to override the wishes of coronavirus patients or their families on a case-by-case basis. These hospitals won't take the ultimate step of sanctioning all coronavirus patients to the Do Not Resuscitate order. We are now on crisis footing, said Lewis Kaplan, president of the Society of Critical Care Medicine at a University of Pennsylvania surgeon. What you take as first come, first served, no holds barred. Everything that is available should be applied. Medicine is not where we are. We are now facing some difficult choices in how we apply medical resources, including staff. For Alto Charo, a bioethicist with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, withholding treatment is very pragmatic decisioning. It doesn't help anybody if our doctors and nurses are felled by this virus and not able to care for us. They're talking about making this like a plague. You know what? If I have a resuscitate order, or I have not signed off on a do not resuscitate, I'm going to sue you. Well, I won't. I'll be dead. But my family better sue you. Seriously. You know, I understand. I understand the whole situation right now. Your job is to try and keep people alive, not kill them. Keep them alive. By God, that is actually a scary story. Scary story. I felt my anxiety building with this one. You know, doctors have their job is to keep you alive, not to make you dead. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe I'm old-fashioned here. All right, but I don't agree with this. That's scary times. Scary times. All right, you know, there's tens of millions heeding orders to stay home during the coronavirus pandemic. Officials in California, though, are warning people to be aware of what they are flushing. Yes, apparently adulting is not taking place in the bathrooms of California. Oh my gosh. Yeah, in the weeks since the pandemic spread, officials are discouraging hoarding supplies such as paper towels and toilet paper, which we've discussed many times on this show, which is absolutely stupid for people to do. And if you're one of them, have you noticed that nobody admits to hoarding the toilet paper? They're always like, I can't believe people are doing this. I can't believe. Who does that? Who goes to the store and buys 340 rolls of toilet paper? Oh, I can't believe this. In the meantime, they've got 1,200 rolls stashed in the walk-in closet in the master bedroom. You know that's happening. Anyways, according to market research from firm Nielsen, toilet paper sales nationally have jumped about 213% in the week ending on March 13th compared to the same period a year before. No bleep. Anyways, stores such as Costco and Walmart are getting shipments of toilet paper, but shelves quickly empty out as soon as they're restocked. Who goes through that much toilet paper? Smaller retailers and convenience stores have fared better. But for those running out of the butt wipe, turning to alternatives is already having an impact on some communities. And here we go. In the Northern California city of Redding, wastewater management officials said that someone apparently used shredded T-shirts in place of toilet paper, causing a sewer backup. The soiled T-shirts caused pumps in one of the city's sewer lines to clog at a lift station, which could have led to a dangerous spill. Redding officials said the incident showed why it's important to avoid flushing anything other than toilet paper. Clogs in the sewer can cause fecal matter to back up into showers and toilets and sinks, putting the community at large at risk for another health crisis. So once again, you should see this pile of T-shirts. This isn't even one person. Look, if you run out, there's a reason why there is a shower close to the toilet. Because in case there's an accident, you can hop right in. And then you can wash yourself. It's like a stand-up bidet. Right? How old are you to think that you have to tear up a t-shirt in order to cleanse yourself? I don't get people. Like, all of a sudden this thing happens and it sucks that we're all into this. It really does suck. But who turns on the stupid meter for people? If I was in that situation, okay, there's a shower in my house. There's a washcloth that I can wash in my washing machine for a worst case scenario. Like, all of a sudden our brains are out the window with this thing. Brains are out the window. I can't be the only one. I feel like Bill Murray right now in Groundhog Day. The stupid is out there. The stupid is out there. And yes, it is stupid. To all those who might get offended by what I said. 2 snowmobile riders from Colorado were searching for an elusive treasure when they became stranded, and one has now died in a Utah park. The pair set out from Denver area March 17th to search for Forrest Fenn's treasure. The eccentric New Mexico antiquities dealer had said that he hit a bounty rumored to be worth about $2 million somewhere in the Rockies. Four Coloradoans have now lost their lives since 2016 in search for it. In 2017, police in northern New Mexico recovered the body of a Colorado pastor who disappeared while searching for the buried treasure. The 58-year-old snowmobiler died before the men were located Saturday near Dinosaur National Monument along the Utah-Colorado border. His 65-year-old companion was rescued. Thousands of people have searched for the treasure since 2010 when Fenn offered clues in a self-published memoir, The Thrill of the Chase. Fenn, who is now 89 years old, said then that he hoped that the hunt would push more people outside to enjoy the wilderness. What happened was tragic, he said in an email about the Colorado men. Authorities have not named the 2 snowmobilers from Deer Trail in Thornton, Colorado. They rented snowmobiles when they arrived in Dinosaur Mountain or Dinosaur National Monument and proceeded into the wilderness Wednesday. So in other words, they weren't prepared. They carried candy bars and a couple bottles of water, but at some point there was not enough snow on the ground and they pressed forward on foot. They were not dressed properly. Here we go. What did we just talk about, stupid? Okay. So they were not dressed appropriately for the conditions, even for a day trip, and definitely not dressed for if something happened that they couldn't get out of there, said Lieutenant Chip McIntyre of the Moffat County Sheriff's Office. Searchers on foot spotted the older man Saturday. He was removed by helicopter and hospitalized, but his companion was dead when rescuers arrived. The men were found within 5 miles of a site where they were previously rescued by emergency crews February 29th. In 2015, Fenn read a poem that said he holds the clues to the location of a chest containing treasure fit for a pirate, gold coins, precious metals, and other artifacts. Its exact dollar value is not known. Some say millions. Fenn told Barry Peterson of CBS Sunday Morning that he hoped his treasure would spark a spirit for adventure for those seeking it. I made it hard to find deliberately, he said. If it was easy, anyone could do it. Teeth just don't chew. Really? The more we find out about these calcified structures in our mouths, the more we discover how the oral environment is linked to our broader health or mental functioning and much more. Even though we may have only scratched the surface on how deep the ties go between teeth and the rest of our lives, according to new research, teeth even serve as a silent chronicler of major life events, recording significant, impactful episodes in mysterious tree ring-like bands hidden inside the microstructure of dental tissue. A tooth is not a static or dead portion of the skeleton, explains dental anthropologist Paola Harris Cerrito of New York University. It continuously adjusts and responds to the physiological, hold on, I gotta take my glasses off, processes. In the study, Cerrito and her team analyzed 47 teeth from 15 deceased individuals aged 25 to 69. At the time of their death, this cohort, drawn from a cadaveric collection of Central African Malawians of Bantu origin, was chosen because, in addition to their human remains, records exist of most of these people's life's histories, including aspects of their lifestyle information and medical history. Very interesting. All right, moving on. A survey of stay-at-home workers in the United States suggests 12% of them have kept their cameras switched off during video calls due to a lack of clothing. Mentimeter, an interactive presentation tool, announced it's commissioned a survey of 1,500 people working from home amid the pandemic and found that 12% of the respondents actually admitted to keeping their video cameras off during meetings on Zoom, Skype, or Google Hangouts because they were naked or partially clothed. The company also said 44% of those surveys admitted they dressed in more professional attire specifically for video meetings, while 16% said they had rearranged their homes to look more professional in the background of a video call. A total 11% of respondents reported seeing something that they considered unprofessional in the background of a co-worker's video call. The survey also suggests 56% of the workers feel their opinions are heard less in video calls than during in-person meetings, while 25% believe their contributions aren't being acknowledged as when they are working in an office. And finally, an endurance kayaker is 26 days into her attempt of circumnavigating all 5 Great Lakes, a distance of about 4,200 miles. 52-year-old Tracy Lynn Martin of Kansas City embarked March 1st from Buffalo, New York, and said Wednesday that she was nearing Cleveland's Lake Erie shore. Martin previously attempted the feat in 2017, but was forced to end her attempt due to ice on Lake Ontario after completing only 3 lakes. She finished having paddled for a distance of 3,592 miles, 230 miles short of the Guinness World Record. Martin says she is not attempting to break the record at this time, freeing her from rules that previously barred her from having a backup boat in case her surf ski, a long kayak, was damaged. Keep going. I'm cheering you on. Let's get to it. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows, and I'm a little disappointed by you all. Really disappointed. What is your opinion of people who eat traditional breakfast meals for dinner? I hate this. I hate this with a passion. Honestly, how do you do it? Why do you eat breakfast? I now have trust issues with many of you listeners if you eat breakfast for dinner. This is one of my huge pet peeves in life. It really is. I don't know why, but it upsets me. There's no breakfast at dinner. That's why there's breakfast. Breakfast is for the morning, not the afternoon, not dinner especially. Shanna, if time doesn't really exist, does it even matter when to have breakfast? Peculiar Mayhem, what about those of us who eat traditional dinner meals for breakfast, Dave? That's okay. That's what pizza is for. Anthony, I literally just had 3 pancakes for dinner, but I myself am strange and unusual. Audra, just don't eat mine. Joe, they really, really, really slept in. Kim, those are good people. Chris, I like myself just fine. Chestnut, love Brenner. Not me, man. Mike, the kids love it. Breakfast, supper. Linda, nonconformist. Goddess Michelle, I love French toast, but I don't eat breakfast, so I will eat it for dinner or supper. Mostly eat it for supper. Ron, or Roy, pardon me. Sometimes there is nothing better than some hot pancakes and a fat omelet with all the fixins. For breakfast, Roy. Breakfast. Andrea, me. This is me. Cynthia, I wake up just in time for lunch, and late at night, it's breakfast time. No, breakfast is for the morning. And Cade, breakfast for dinner is one of the best treats you could give yourself during quarantine. No, it is not. That's what dinner is called. You people are wrong. Wrong. I'm not a morning person either. I get up at around 10 o'clock every morning, sometimes 11. I still eat breakfast, then I have a later lunch, and then there's dinner. Kurt, awesome, because my family does it sometimes, bacon and eggs for supper. Wrong! So wrong. Gail, I think they are brilliant people who have the confidence to eat what they want, when they want, and how they want it. Now, pass the bacon. Well, bacon is the exception to the rule. Sean, I do that a lot. Rob, oh yeah. Kelly, pancakes and sausage, yummy. Jason, my kids always love breakfast for supper. One of their favorite memories growing up. Probably played soccer too. Sparky, why not? Sometimes I have breakfast for dinner. Got to mix it up so I don't get bored. The opposite, I love pizza for breakfast. Well, pizza you can have at any time. John, to each their own. If they like it, all the power to them. Kevin, I think they're hungry. Cam, my first real date in high school, brought her home to meet mom and dad. Mom, we just had pancakes and scrambled eggs. Can I make you some? Wow. Jaretta, I can eat breakfast for any meal. Leslie, go for it. Your body, your life, you enjoy. Bob, I resemble that remark. Gabe, I used to do it once in a while. Good eating. Vivian, who cares? Food is food. Caden, doesn't everyone do that on occasion? Aaron, we are awesome. Renee, nothing wrong with it. I often eat breakfast meals for dinner, and it is yummy. John, breakfast at any time is awesome. Alfred, no problem. I love breakfast for dinner. William, I am not declaring a position as of this posting. I need more valid data to form a hypothesis. And Marty gets the final word. We eat our main meal at the same time every day around 7 p.m., so whatever is on the menu is eaten at that time. If it happens to be pancakes, waffles, omelets, or French toast, then that is dinner. If people don't like it, too bad. Wow. I'm surprised. Disappointed, but surprised. Thank you to everybody for taking part in the Thought of the Dave. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the wonderful news at the SOR Newswire on our website. And, of course, Gian Quasar for talking about the Zodiac Killer. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Special thanks to everybody in our chat rooms on Revolution Radio, LGAB, Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers Club at our website, and of course the Snarkers and Snarkettes on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a great night, everybody. We get to do it all again tomorrow. I'm thankful for it. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. You guys got to be kidding me, YouTube. Breakfast for dinner? That is so wrong. It is so wrong. And then you guys wonder why I have trust issues. I have one rule in my house: no breakfast for dinner. Now, when I go away, I know the family sneaks up and has some breakfast for dinner. I've been told this. My dogs gave them up. No, There is never, ever a time, place, or anything for breakfast for dinner. It's terrible. I don't get it. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. Now, look, I understand if you work the night shift, okay? If you work the night shift and let's say you get up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you start work at 7 and you got a 7 until 7 shift and you're going to go down to the local, whatever it is, the local Denny's or IHOP or whatever, and you're going to have breakfast. I get that because that's technically not dinner. Okay? But if you're a regular daytimer like I am, and you're getting up in the morning anytime before noon, you're eating goddamn breakfast at breakfast. You're not eating breakfast for dinner. Oh my God. I don't know why you guys are stressing me out like this. Stop. Stop. You guys are terrible. Oh, there goes Shanna Banana with the reality break comment. I'm a big girl and I can eat whatever I want at dinner time. If eggs, well, so be it. Go fuck yourself, Dave. Yeah. You should see the comments right there. Included the end part, too. Flip off, Dave. Flip off. You and your hair. Flip off. I will have breakfast. Oh, my God. You guys are terrible. Terrible. I thought we knew each other better. I thought we knew each other better. I really did. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Derek. Hey, we got the Newswire tomorrow. Or not the Newswire. What the hell am I saying? The Round Table tomorrow and a week tomorrow. Derek, get ready. It's our Keith Andrews time again. Oh, Waylon, come on. Come on, Waylon. You're better than this. You're better than this. I'm still surprised that Shanna Banana said, go fuck yourself, Dave. Go fuck yourself. No, she didn't really. I'm just teasing. You guys are killing me. Killing me. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. So what do you guys get to do now? Renee, how's tomorrow looking? Am I alive tomorrow? Did you fill me in on that, please? I know, Derek. I know. I'll make up the woo factor tomorrow. I will make up the woo factor tomorrow. Hi, beautiful Marie. Dave, you can eat whatever you want when you break your fast. For the most part, I've eaten one meal a day, and that is anytime between 5 and 7 p.m., and sometimes I have bacon and eggs. All right, Derek. I'll bring the woo tomorrow. You know what we're going to start on the... hey, Derek, if you're still here, we're going to start this... We're going to start a woo section for you on the round table. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it up to you, Derek, to bring a one night a month, one question for woo. You got to deliver me a woo question to ask the panel. And I'll call it, Woo Word Bound by Derek on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Woo Word Bound. I will never have breakfast for dinner, just so you know. Ever. Ever. All right. What do you think of that, Derek? Tomorrow night we kick it off, buddy. Woo Word Bound. Just deliver me the woo question on Twitter before the show, and I'll ask the panel. No, not just one word. You got to come up with a question. You got to come up with a question. And I will not have breakfast for dinner, Renee. Ever. Ever. Dude, when I get to Texas, I am going into taco overload. All right. And make sure you, just so I remember the name, make sure you title it Woo Word Bound. New feature on the SOR Roundtable. Pressure's on now, Derek. Pressure is on. You know, we gotta. Woo! That's what we gotta do. I know. I gotta see if our show is up here yet. I gotta see if our show is up. Is it in there yet? Or is it still saving? I am not drinking. I am not drinking down in Texas. Let's view episode. Download. Yay, we get to download the episode and then I get to edit it. Isn't that fun? Isn't that just beautiful? Isn't that just beautiful? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. All right. Well, I think tomorrow's after party may include a few people. Hey, Bill, WD-40. How you doing, man? Yeah, I'm downloading it right now. Then I got to quickly edit it. Edit it. Isn't that fun to say? Edit it. What'd you do? I had to edit it. What? I had to edit it. Derek, I say that now. I have a public figure to keep in touch here. Yes, I have had Texas tea before, which is not the real thing. I just want some of them tacos. I've had beer for breakfast in Vegas. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see here. When quarantine is over, need a real restaurant experience with a fancy pants cocktail. Well, we'll see. if this shit isn't over, I'm going to be not going to Texas this summer. We all got to hope. We got to have hope, people. Hope. We all got to have hope right about now. Look at all the people on Twitter posting breakfast for dinner. People are sick. Oh, Marty, Dave loves the clown. I didn't even see the clown, actually. I got to go look for the clown here. I didn't have time. Where's the clown? Where? Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, she's kind of hot. That's kind of a hot clown. Wrong. Loved the clown. Hate breakfast for dinner. Anywho, what else we got going on? What else we got going on? Hey, Chocobo! I'm surprised they've shut down the taco trucks. I really am. I thought they would be like an essential service. Go straight to Torchy's Taco. Well, is that near I don't know Texas like anything, man. The only thing I know is like Dallas and San Antonio are like 4 or 5 hours apart or something like that. And I'll be going to San Antonio. Hey, Science Bob, what the hell are you still doing up? It's almost breakfast time for you. See what I did there? It's almost breakfast time for Science Bob. All right. The editing process starts now. Cut that. Let's cut the front off here. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. How long is that? Oh, that's about... Let's cut another 1.5 seconds off, shall we? Boom, gone. Boom. That's the way it goes, right there. Boom. We'll highlight this. So we need to edit, amplify. Amplify. Starting now. Hi. Where is Science Bob? Science Bob, I know you're there. I want to try this, Torchies. I'm still, you know what? I'm still unsure about the whole avocado thing. I was very anti-avocado because literally it's tasteless. But I'm actually starting to enjoy avocado. I think that's, you know, is avocado a fruit? Do we know? Now I got to Google. Is avocado a vegetable? No, avocado is a fruit. Okay. Guaranteed, Science Bob has his onesie pajamas on that have the decor of a science lab coat. And then he's got a cape on that says Science Bob on the back. Guaranteed. Because I know if I was Science Bob, I would totally fucking have that. Totally. Absolutely, I would. And I know you're laughing. Hey, good night, Derek Edwards. Good night, Derek Edwards. Spark up your avocado with hot sauce. Maybe. Nebraska? I picture Nebraska much like Saskatchewan, except Nebraska goes east-west, whereas Saskatchewan goes north-south. I never said I used to be anti-avocado, but I've grown into avocado. But it is boring to eat. It very much is. Which is strange because I love cucumber. Always loved cucumber. And cucumber's kind of boring too. At least it's wet boring. Waiting for Science Bob to make a comment about his pajamas that he has on right now. Come on, Science Bob, you can do it. I know you're dying laughing. I wonder if you messaged me. You messaged me about that, huh? No, didn't even message me. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Science Bob finally confirms the lab coat pajamas along with the Science Bob cape. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Finally confirmed with a giant yes. Oh. I wonder if I... Hold on. Let's see if I can do this. Hold on. Oh, we're going to turn this way. I'm going to show you guys my hot sauce bottle collection. This is all... Hold on, let me see here. Go to... Hold on. Just going to switch screen. All right. This here is my hot sauce bottle collection of most of them that I have finished. I got a bunch more. I got about 20 other bottles in my fridge. There's some cool ones here. The Great Red Shark. Real good one back here. That one. Prairie Fire. This one was brutally hot. This one's like 1 million Scoville units. Wilbur's Revenge out of Vegas. That one was really good. Rectal Rocket Fuel. Ass Blaster. Oh, yeah. What else we got here? There's Blair's Sweet Death Sauce. That one was hot. Tiger Sauce. Some of you may recognize this one. The Bomb. Down here. Huh? What's this one? Cheech Marin? What else we got here that's interesting? This one was hot. That one was warm. It's me. Oh, yeah. So, lots of hot sauce. Hold on, let me get that all stationed over here again. Just thought you'd like to have some fun with that. Don't know if you heard me or not. Oh my God, what happened here? Oh, is that better? Yeah, that's not too bad right there. Bring it down a little bit. There we go. I do watch Hot Ones on YouTube. It's good. Dave is not a hippie. Okay? Yeah, Dave likes his hot sauce. I haven't even brought out the collection from upstairs yet. Hey, by the way, is Science Bob still here? Science Bob, hold on. I wore this for you tonight, man. I wore this for you tonight. Hopefully you get that. Hold on, let me see. I gotta switch screens here. One sec. Yeah, I wore this for Science Bob tonight. How is that, Science Bob? I am not a hippie. Not a hippie. Hey, you guys are cruel. Cruel. Now I'm a hippie. Wow. Why is that up there? There we go. That's where we need to be. Still got to lower that camera a little bit. Go. I hope Science Bob saw that before he logged off. I like vegetables. Oh, that's just not working for me. That's just not working. Gotta go down. Hold on. Wrong fucking mouse. That's even worse. Really? Actually make that worse? That's too much. See, that's all right right there. That's all right. Yeah, that one's all right. Yeah, there we go. I think I'm feeling that one. Hey, Spaghetti, what's going on? I put hot sauce on everything. I put hot sauce on my spaghetti tonight. Anyways, everyone, I gotta go. I gotta start doing a little bit of editing here to get this latest episode off because it'll start airing at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So, I will chat with you guys very, very soon. But we'll do it all again tomorrow. Roundtable tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.